Well, good. Spectre here. We are on the 5x5 channel here for a Wednesday afternoon, getting off to a little bit of a late start. Missing one of our folks here today. Sonny will not be joining us in the second hour here, but we're going to make a go of it anyway. And I believe 412 Pixels Net should be rounding things out here in the third hour here this afternoon on this hump day, now the 12th day of January. So good to have you aboard. Whatever platform you may be joining from here this afternoon. If you're over on Twitch, good to see you here this afternoon. If you're over on YouTube, we are still there, surprisingly. Good to have you guys aboard as well over on DLive. And last but not least, over on the Foxhole. And for you folks joining over there, you'll notice that they've had some updates net to the platform here today. So if you're having trouble figuring things out, where things are at, well, bear with it. I think the guys behind the scenes are still working through all the various changes and whatnot over on the old Foxhole, getting things ironed out, and probably take just a little bit to probably smooth things out. So stay tuned in that regard. But nonetheless, got a good show for you here this afternoon, and lots to cover. KB will be joining me here throughout, it sounds like. Looks like he's already here. That's fine. And we'll knock out the next couple hours here with some stuff that's going on around the world and give it a go. So good to see you. If you're tuning in, David Orpwood out of New Zealand. Good morning. Tomorrow already for you. Let's see. Sadie Lamp Duo, BK Mars, Charmaine, good to have you aboard. Mombat, etc., etc. Good to have you. So that being said, let's get into it. And I do hear KB in the background. How we doing?
Great, Breaking. How you doing?
Oh, it's definitely a hump day. Hopefully we're on the downhill slider this week because it's already been a bang up of a week. And you'll see that as we go through some of this stuff. And comment as you see fit. We'll do it that way today. How about that?
Absolutely. Thanks very much. And I know you've got lots to cover. There's a lot of news to cover, and greetings to everybody from the home of Omicron down in South Africa. And
the home of Omicron. I don't know. That's kind of a notorious thing. I don't know if I'd really want to be known as the place where Omicron originated from or was found or whatever the heck you want to call it. But yeah, maybe you want to.
It's also the place where it's being debunked.
Yeah, so that's true.
Nobody's taking it seriously at all. So once again, thank you for giving me an opportunity to give a voice to Africa.
Sure thing. All right. Well, that being said, appreciate you being here. And let's kick this thing off here. First up, I'm going to hit Steve Harvey is slamming cancel culture. Woke leftists have killed comedy. We'll start off with a little bit of a softball here today, but as we well know here in these United States, a little comic relief. Well, it's tough to do these days because you get people like Dave Chappelle who have been tried to be canceled, and a number of others in the past who have, subsided to the woke culture. And it makes it awful doggone difficult for you to do your profession when you have libtards on the left and that trying to hack at you every turn. So this piece here out of News Punch says Steve Harvey has slammed cancel culture for ruining comedy and infecting the world with woke propaganda. The comedian and actor told reporters Tuesday that he can't do stand-up anymore due to sensitive leftists. Says, we're in the cancel culture now. Harvey, why are they calling him Harley? Steve Harvey, isn't it? Yeah, misspellings here, I suppose. Harvey said during his show's Television Critics Association press tour panel, nobody can say anything he wants to. Chris Rock can't, Kevin Hart can't, Cedric the Entertainer can't, Theo Hughley can't. I can go down the list. The only person that can say what they want to say on stage is Dave Chappelle because he's not sponsor driven. He's subscription. If I had tried to continue as a stand-up, there's no way I could maintain it because political correctness has killed comedy. Has killed it, he added. Every joke now, it hurts somebody's feelings. What people don't understand about comedians is that the joke has to be about something. It has to be about somebody. We can't write jokes about puppies all the time. The joke can't be about bushes all the time. Some of these jokes have to be about people because that's the most interesting topic. So if I come back, I have to wait until I'm done with my TV career, and I'm not done. I'd have to call it This Is It or something like that. HollywoodReporter.com reports he wasn't done. So one of the reasons I stopped doing stand-up was my wife informed me that God was about to do something. I had no idea what he's going to do. He was going to give me this new show, and it turned out to be the best thing that happened to me. On another political topic, Harvey had a couple of thoughts on the legal system. Says just because it's the law, don't make it right, he noted. Every law is not a correct law. We have a law in this country that everybody has a right to bear arms, but everybody shouldn't bear arms. Everybody shouldn't have a gun. That's clear to me. Every stand your ground law, everybody shouldn't be told to stand their ground. That's why I'm glad my show is not that type of course, or type of court, rather. Judge Steve Harvey features the Emmy winner presiding over small claims court cases and comedic primetime take on the popular daytime format popularized by shows like Judge Judy. Says, I'm going to do this show for 2 years and it's going to be a huge success, he predicted. It's based on my opinions. And I suppose it would probably help if I actually showed you the actual article on that I'm covering there. There we go. How about that? So I think the average person just has to remember that every time you fail, every time you're challenged, it's not to destroy you or to injure you or to cause you to give up. All those things are to prepare you for what you ask God for. Says he continued, I wanted to be successful, so I had to be tested. Because on the way to becoming successful, you've got to understand disappointment. You've got to understand attacks. You've got to understand litigation. You've got to understand being misunderstood. You've got to be able to deal with being talked about. Nobody talks about you if you're not doing nothing. Says if you've got to develop tough skin. I just say to people when you're going through challenges to deal with it. Envelop it, pray about it, and ask for the lesson behind it. So there you have it by way of Steve Harvey, one of the better ones in the business, I would say, personally, by way of stand-up comedy. And he's absolutely right at this point. The culture is so woke. What are they left to talk about? And especially if you've got sponsors behind the scenes. If you're, backed by a Disney contract or NBC Universal or something along those lines or something, you're going to piss somebody off. It's just natural. And the only person that I know that has thus far stood up to it is Dave Chappelle. And they couldn't cancel him. They tried. They tried to come against him at his Netflix special. And they found out, nah, you ain't having it. It says, bring it on. So until these folks decide that, hey, rather than go for the lucrative contracts, millions of dollars or whatever, and go out on their own, in the real world and do this stuff, then and only then will they be able to speak freely. So interesting piece to start off with here.
I've got a cool meme for that.
Okay.
There we go.
I'll bring her up. There you go.
Talking about work culture.
Sorry, Arthur. Your answer was actually correct, but Paul shouted his opinion louder, so he gets the point. And an extra bonus point also goes to Sue, as she was offended by your answer. Yeah, that pretty well sums it up, I would say. Oh, man.
That's the world we live in, yeah?
Yeah, either that or if her name wasn't Sue, I'd say maybe Karen would probably be yet another one that might get offended. But yeah, that pretty well sums up where we're at here these days. It's insane.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, moving along into some January 6th related stuff here. It says we interviewed Ray Epps and he told us he never worked with law enforcement. Mind you, this is on the heels of yesterday, I believe it was Ted Cruz and company up on the Hill asking some very pointed questions about the January 6th ordeal. And it looks like the folks that have put this committee together on the House side of the Congress might have hit a bit of a roadblock here. And where is Ray Epps, by the way? Why is he not brought forward? Says if you don't know who Ray Epps is, read John Ward's analysis of Tucker Carlson's Patriot Purge documentary for background. Epps features in that film and in other apologias for the riot as a possible federal agent provocateur, a guy who is seen the day before January 6 egging on a crowd to enter the Capitol the next day, drawing jeers of Fed, Fed, Fed by the people around him. Suspiciously, Epps' photo was initially featured on an FBI wanted poster, but was removed from a later iteration, with no explanation. Was Epps working with the FBI? Was he maybe even an FBI agent? Is that why he was no longer wanted? Ward lays out what's known. Says Epps is a military veteran who has listed in years past as a leader in the Oath Keepers. Beatty has documented the ways in which Epps is on video the night before January 6 and in the hours leading up to the assault, exhorting people to go to the Capitol and into the building. Epps is also seen at the site of the first violent confrontation between Trump supporters and police, urging one young man to wait and telling him, "We need more people." The FBI has acknowledged having at least one quote-unquote informant among the right-wing militants in the crowd on January 6, who entered the Capitol building after it was breached. There is no photographic evidence of Epps inside the Capitol. Now, if Epps was an informant, that would raise uncomfortable questions for the government. The Justice Department declined to comment when asked. But Epps also could be cooperating with authorities and avoiding prosecution that way. And it strains credulity to believe that the majority of people who assaulted the Capitol did so because of one man yelling in a crowd, versus the explicit instructions to march up to the Capitol from Trump, the sitting president they had gathered to support. It'd be a serious government scandal if Epps turned out to be connected to the FBI, not for the reason that the January 6 whitewashers want him to be, so that they can claim that the actions of thousands of people involved in a diffuse protest turned riot were all the fault of the federal government. It's because law enforcement should never, ever incite lawbreaking. It's one thing to have informants in the crowd to provide real-time intelligence. It's another to have informants egging people on to get violent. Ray Epps not being there that day wouldn't have prevented the riot. But if he worked for the FBI and crossed the line into incitement, the FBI must be held accountable. Says Ted Cruz is desperate to worm his way back into the good graces of Tucker Carlson and his MAGA audience after he pissed them off last week by accurately describing the insurrection as terrorism. Using that word raised doubt as to whose side he's on, a perilous place for a populist presidential candidate to be. So, Cruz put on a show at a hearing this morning with an FBI supervisor, using his best "a few good men" tone to try to get answers on whether Ray Epps has ever worked for the FBI. The supervisor continually refused to comment, although she did say she had no knowledge of anyone inciting violence on January 6 who is working for or with federal agents. And I think I'll probably skip that because I think many of you have probably seen this extensively already, I would imagine. But nonetheless, this would be the exchange. It says after that performance went viral, the January 6th committee decided to show some of its cards. They interviewed Epps in November, reportedly, and he testified that he hasn't worked with or for any law enforcement agency. Now, if that's actually true, how come we never saw any written transcripts or anything about being sworn under oath or anything along those lines? Why are we just now learning that supposedly Epps has been interviewed? Is this kind of like one of those Hillary deals where, no tapes, no writings, no nothing? It happened by way of headlines, but what took place, who knows? Back in the days when Comey was questioning her, I use air quotes behind the scenes. Says, how much stock do we want to put in Epps' own testimony? Granted, lying to the committee would be perjury, which could send him to prison. But if he really was a CI for the FBI on January 6th, the agency might intervene and ask the committee and the DOJ not to prosecute him, not wanting to blow his cover. And maybe the committee would keep that revelation secret for the same reason. The more relevant question is, has the FBI itself confirmed to the committee or any other agency that Epps wasn't acting at the Bureau's discretion, or direction rather? That wouldn't satisfy Tucker's audience, but denials on both sides here would be a bit more reassuring that Epps really isn't an informant. But wait, if Epps wasn't working with the feds, why did they take him off the wanted list? Adam Kinzinger, one of the January 6th committee's two Republican, and I should probably use air quotes around that, members, hopped onto Twitter this afternoon to answer that question. According to Kinzinger, although Epps was apparently eager to see other people enter the Capitol, there's no evidence that he entered himself or took to attacking any cops. Simply put, the feds don't have anything to charge him with. And here we get Kinzinger spewing his trash. I'm not even going to bother reading that. Says, what about Epps encouraging others to enter the Capitol, though? Isn't that incitement? Actually, no. He said that the day before the riot, under Supreme Court precedent, incitement is protected speech until it's intended to cause and unlikely to cause imminent lawless action. So if Epps had been caught telling the mob on January 6th, while they were gathered outside the Capitol, that it was time to move forward and bust some heads, that would be classical criminal incitement. But planting the idea in their heads the day before, well, that's legal since violence wasn't imminent at that moment. He's a bad guy, but not all bad guys are criminals. Most aren't, in fact. Anyway, Kinzinger's right about the populist motive in obsessing over Epps. The point is to shift blame for the insurrection to literally anyone except Trump and the Trumpers who participated in it by claiming that the true perpetrators were some established enemy of MAGA. It was Antifa in red hats, or it was an inside job by the deep state that ended up roping in peaceful MAGA protesters, etc. We'll see if the FBI decides to go on the record about Epps tomorrow, meaning here today, because I believe this article was penned late yesterday. Yeah, yesterday late about 8 p.m. So apparently I haven't had the opportunity to see if there's been more ongoing with this here today. But nonetheless, where is Epps? And if he did indeed provide testimony, again, why have we not yet seen anything of it? What are they hiding? Is he undercover? Well, if the precedent has been set for Epps and it's going to work to his favor, then why wouldn't it work for Trump? I don't know. Just a thought. I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit on that one. Any thoughts, KB?
I just really think that they're trying to cover their butts. None of this seems credible to me. You know, we've known about Epps forever. I think the question surrounding his involvement, I really just think they're coming late to the party to try and give some kind of weak explanation for it. I mean, I certainly don't buy it. I don't know if any of the viewers do either.
Yeah, I think I would agree. And of course, it seems like every day we're seeing more and more stuff drip, drip, drip. So I guess stay tuned in that regard, eh?
On that point, actually, it's quite interesting. I don't know. It appeared that if you're following any of the chatter out there, it appears they're trying to instigate or plan some kind of event for the end of this month.
For the January 6th related stuff, or?
Yeah, I think it appears that in their desperation, I mean, all their narratives are falling apart from the COVID one to the January 6th narrative, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they need another distraction.
Yeah, it's probably a good time to look out for any sort of false flag, as it were. So heads on swivels, folks. Never know if these lunatics are backed into a corner, and like a dog that's been cornered, you never know. You can't predict what exactly is going to happen.
Did you see any of that rhetoric about Iran? And I think somebody in the State Department sent a message to the Iranians that they shouldn't try and attempt to take retribution for President Trump's strike.
Soleimani.
Yeah. And it's almost as if they're inviting something. It just doesn't seem quite
Well,
right.
if you look at it, KB, we've got so many sparks, right, that they have fomented across this little globe we call Earth here as of late. Any one of those could at any time blow up into something much larger than what it is, right?
Exactly.
Whether we're talking about the Ukraine, whether now all of a sudden Kazakhstan is in the news, whether we're talking North Korea, pumping out some rockets, little rocket man doing his thing over there. Let's see, how many other potential sparks do we have out there? Flaps between India and China on their border, you name it, and they could exploit any one of those.
What's happening in Australia, what's happening in parts of Europe, people fighting back. There's a whole lot of reasons why they would want to, introduce some kind of distraction or crisis.
Well, yeah, of course, when, their narrative starts to fail and people aren't buying their crap anymore, well, it's time for a quick distraction. And, it's like I say, too, here, the last couple of mornings, I've talked about some Second Amendment related things here, some of the things that are playing out. And rest assured, folks, the Dems have absolutely nothing to run on. There is no quiver in the cap that they can say, yeah, we did this and be proud of it. They've got nothing. All one has to do is go back, and I keep citing this, go back to Devolution Part 15, read through that long list of their quote-unquote accomplishments at the very top of the article. There is nothing. So the only thing that they can possibly do, and this is ridiculous at the start, they want to try and put somebody like Gavin Newsom in as a potential presidential candidate. And the thing that they're going to try and do is use gun control because it's always worked for them. But I think even then, people are starting to see through that stuff too. So it's probably all going to backfire on them, even if they were to try some sort of additional false flags, blame the gun this, blame the gun that, and then everything, comes back around and all is good on their end. The poll numbers won't support it, and I think these guys are cooked, and of course we now have, I think we're up to 26 Dems, I think, are now throwing in the towel, not going to be running in the midterms. So not looking too good for the other side at the moment.
The one thing I've been concerned about, aren't schools going back, or haven't schools just gone back now? And my fear was that perhaps they would try and do something silly at school shootings. They did attempt one or two recently, but that's that's part of their real playbook. And let's hope that nothing like that does take place.
True, but the key thing about that is they've already played their card on that through the unions and says, well, we're not going to put kids back in school at the moment because, well, they're all tripped up on COVID related mandates and testing and things of that nature, which, by the way, I'll get into here in a moment because I do have a piece here from Chicago under standoff with the union there here on the next piece. But let's get into that here in just a minute. Let me.
There was just one point I wanted to raise, and
sure.
You mentioned Kazakhstan.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been quite interesting there, I'm not quite sure who's got the upper hand. I hate calling them this, but either the black hats or the white hats. But what has been quite interesting is that I don't know, I'm actually feeling a bit more positive about Kazakhstan than what is being shown in the media, mostly because one of the people that was arrested was the previous finance minister who's got links to Biden.
Yep.
So that's one good thing. And the level of force that they've come out with against the people, that says to me that, I don't know, maybe the black or the bad actors have been thwarted somewhat. So I'm hoping that my assessment of that is correct.
To be determined. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll touch upon that here in just a minute. Let me bring up this article because this is interesting as it pertains to obviously midterms. But out of Human Events here today, it says "Live Free or Die." New Hampshire grassroots organization defeats odds, forces referendum on vote counting in 30 municipalities. So, aside from everybody telling us all is well, no problems with 2020 election, we had this Rubinette that apparently Trump had endorsed, who basically ended up being a turncoat. And then you get the likes of McConnell here recently agreeing with him. Yep, no problems here. All is good, right? And in the meantime, in the background, we got stuff going on in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, et cetera, and now add to the list New Hampshire. So if all is well, why is all this stuff actually happening in the background then? Why is that? And why is there such a rush to immediately hurry up and abolish the filibuster so that the Dems can institutionalize this at a federal level and try and take over? Which, of course, will fail because the states are going to recognize, hey, we have this thing called the 10th Amendment. It's called the federal overreach. You don't have the authority. We do. And we're going to leave it exactly where the Constitution intended it to be. So anyway, says using the energy of its citizens and taking advantage of a seldom used and less understood provision of state law, the Marigold Coffee Club and its members have managed to force referendums in 30 cities, towns, and villages across New Hampshire to decide if ballots in future elections will be counted by machine or by hand. Aha! So they see what's playing out in places like Pennsylvania, where the dimwits over at Dominion thought that they were going to be able to thwart the will of some folks over there, and found out they got slapped down by a judge here in recent days and says, no, that ain't going to happen. And so perhaps maybe folks are recognizing this and saying, hey, let's take the power back, put it in our own hands, and ditch the machines. So perhaps this is what's going to take place up in New Hampshire. It says, as has been reported by Human Events News, the Marigold Group organized the effort to have machines removed in the wake of the audit, which took place in the southeast town of Windham after the 2020 election. The audit itself was surrounded with controversy, but ultimately concluded that the 10% across the board discrepancy in vote counts was the result of machine error and not the result of any form of election tampering. The Marigold response was to then launch an effort to remove machines. So, as using a provision of the law unique to New Hampshire relating to warrant articles, the group set out to collect signatures from enough town residents and locales where machines are used for vote counting to trigger an automatic referendum. The deadline, which fell on Tuesday, was 30, potentially more as we go to press, communities, including New Hampshire's largest city, Manchester, meet the required threshold. This has been a collaborative effort that started back at the end of August with conception and launched publicly in September. We're able to get cooperation from people from all walks of life and across the entire state, says Marigold founder Felisa Blasick. She adds with the emotion in her voice, everybody was fighting for their rights. People just came together. What was really inspiring and magical is what happened once people realized that this was truly attainable. Blasick said that pushback is expected because previously towns have resisted our rights to be heard. But we know our rights, and we know we have met the state requirements in terms of signatures and timely submission. Blasick then went on to cite various state laws, including RSA sections 39.3, 40.13, and 187.6 as specific references for compliance with state law. The next step in the process for Marigold will be to stay on top of each local community's leaders to make certain they hold to their legal obligation to place the measure on the next upcoming ballot. Blasick hoped that the communities will voluntarily comply so that intervention from the state's attorney general's office is not required. New Hampshire State Senator Robert Judah, the man instrumental in getting special legislation passed to allow the Windham audit to move forward, said of the effort, This all grew out of the Wyndham audit, which was not moving forward until I got the bill pushed through. Our state allows for the citizens to decide how votes get counted. Ultimately, this needed to be left to the people, and the people have to work at it. The people need to work as a team. Teamwork is exactly what Marigold relied upon in undertaking their effort. Now, according to Blazik, their volunteers work tirelessly and relentlessly across the state. Juita pointed out that the warrant provision in New Hampshire law requires a municipality to hold a referendum on any issue where the lesser of 25 signatures or 2% of the population successfully petition. When the required level of signatures has been gathered, local officials have no choice but to put the measure on a ballot for citizen action. A Marigold has met or exceeded the minimum threshold in every location. As for Marigold and what comes next, Blazik says, we're going to be working on promoting the watermarked, sequenced, numbered, counterfeit-proof ballots that were developed by Authentics and through the efforts of Arizona State Representative Mark Fincham. Says the ballots Blazik references have been the subject of prior Human Events exclusive reporting. Says in addition to the local town-by-town referendum initiative, State Representative Mark Allegro will be introducing legislation on Thursday to eliminate voting machine count statewide. Human Events will follow and report on the progress of that bill as it makes its way through the legislative process. So kudos to the folks up in New Hampshire for getting that done. Obviously, tireless, relentless, some keywords out of that. And that's exactly what it's going to take for people all around this country. Not just the 6 swing states and or cities within said states, but this is going to have to be across all 50 states. At the end of the day, we're going to have to be smart about rallying folks around us. Paint the example of and use those who have come before us, like New Hampshire, and say, hey, this is what they just got done doing. Do we have the time to get that done in our respective states? Absolutely, we do. Heck, they're still deciding who's going to be filling the shoes of 26 Dems who have now bowed out. So is there time? Absolutely. And so if you happen to be in one of those states and are not part of those efforts, I'd recommend getting on board, frankly. Anyway.
There's been a big push on, I was watching Bannon's War Room yesterday, and it's actually grassroots stuff. And all of us all over the world have to get down and understand our voting systems. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all of us. And it's incumbent upon us to do it because no one's going to come and save us.
No, there is no one but you.
Yeah, we have to save ourselves.
And yes, it should bridge the divide that the Mockingbird media would absolutely love to drive a wedge between. They don't want black, brown, colored people, white people, varying degrees of religiousness, whatever, any of those folks working together. No, they want to foment division. That is what they do. United we stand, divided we fall.
Absolutely. And in South Africa, we've got a thing called the Yes Movement, and it's Yes for We the People. And there's a lot of good things happening here. So while I do still believe and maintain that our fortunes are tied very closely to what happens in the US, we, the people globally, have to keep on fighting. And we've got to get down to the grassroots level and ensure that the municipalities, which is the little jurisdictions that we have in South Africa, are starting to be run by ourselves. And I'm part of a finance committee for the broader Yes movement. And people, it's a very peaceful thing. Everything we're doing is peaceful. Change, we bringing about change legally. We're using common law. We're using all the tools that are available to us. And, we're not alone. It's a beautiful thing because this is right across the color bar, people of all colors. And in fact, if anything, South Africans can be very proud of Black South Africans who are actually the ones that are really leading the drive on many levels, and particularly against vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. So when it comes to the movement of people and our willingness to work with each other, regardless of our color, regardless of our religion, we're moving forward. We are moving forward.
Good deal. All right. So, as I had mentioned just before this article, talking briefly about what's going on in Chicago, we get this piece out of Illinois Policy. It says Chicago Teachers Union ends walkout after students lose 5 days. And of course, the unions wield a big stick, right? And they're major donors to most of the Dems. But what happens when they aren't exactly towing the line, or perhaps if this were a game of tug of war, they're not pulling on the right end of the rope to go for the win here? Pretty soon they find themselves at odds, and they're disjointed at this point. And it's kind of a beautiful thing to see that the things are not exactly working according to plan on their end. But nonetheless, Chicago students will be back in classes January 12th, today, after losing 5 days of instruction thanks to a walkout by the Chicago Teachers Union. The union forced more COVID-19 testing, but damaged students' educations for the third time in 27 months to do so. The Chicago Teachers Union governing body voted 389 to 226 to return to classrooms, ending a walkout over COVID-19 testing that cost students 5 days of instruction and was the union's third work stoppage in 27 months. Chicago Public Schools agreed all schools would begin testing at least 10% of their student population, but parents must permit their children to be part of the testing program. CTU wanted all students tested unless parents chose to remove them from the program. The district refused, giving parents control of their children's testing, which is where it should be, if at all. By the way, a lot of parents up in Chicago sued the union because of this. Says the district is aiming to have 100% of students tested and vaccinated by February 1st. Well, that isn't going to happen. All they have to do is take a look at what happened in LA. The LA school district pretty much had to rescind that policy because so many people went against it. They realized, we can't do it. It's not going to happen. And hopefully the folks up in Cook County do the same. Says additionally, the two parties agreed on a metric based on staff and student absences in quarantine that would trigger an individual school to shift to remote learning. Parents were upset with CTU for forcing students out of classes and were organizing against the work stoppage. One group of parents sued, trying to end what they said was an illegal work stoppage, and it was. Whether they declared it or not, they didn't give proper notice for the work stoppage, anything. Anytime that the teachers are not in the classroom, that is a work stoppage, period. Full stop. And they have to heal to that. Says a Catholic school is open down the street from me and the parking lots are full. So it doesn't make sense that our public schools are closed, said Sarah Sashin, a mother of 4 CPS students. At my schools, most of the teachers are vaccinated. My children are vaccinated, and the schools are following masking and distancing protocols. So I feel safe sending my kids to school, she said. I'm very upset by the current situation with the Chicago Teachers Union. CTU Vice President Stacey Davis Gates cast the union as a victim in the dispute and criticized parents who were outraged by the work stoppage. Oh, yes. Got to have the blame game and the victim card played, of course, right? So this is the second January in a row where we have had to be held hostage, quite frankly, and hostage negotiations, she said. What parents don't know is without the workers, the school workers in our building, you don't have anything. CPS CEO Pedro Martinez thanked the 16% of teachers who reported to buildings January 10th, allowing over 150 schools to offer some in-person activities. Teacher Joe Okol said students should not be used as pawns by union leaders with a political agenda who are bent on power plays. But yet it happens all the time. Says our students lose every day there's a strike. They have already lost more than a year of learning. and now another loss for them is so sad, he said. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, old Beetlejuice, dodged questions about which side won the standoff, but said she is relieved kids will be back in school. So I'm hopeful this is the end, at least for this school year, Lightfoot said, referring to the CTU labor disputes spanning years. CTU forced work stoppages 3 times in 27 months, including 11 days of instruction lost in 2019. Before that, CTU actions in 2016 cost students a day, and in 2012 cost 7 days. But Lightfoot may be engaging in wishful thinking, especially if a proposal to enshrine union powers in the Illinois Constitution passes in November. Yeah, not going to happen. We will put an end to that crap right quick. Says Amendment 1 gives union bosses permanent powers that could override state laws and a constitutional protection no other special interest enjoys. Lawmakers could never diminish union powers or repeal Amendment 1, even in a unanimous vote. Before Illinois voters decide November 8th whether government unions need more power in Illinois, they should examine how CTU has used the power it already has. So again, highlighting the fact that the unions, not wielding their big stick, thought that they could get the better end, and the people, meaning the parents and companies, said, screw that. We're not going to play this game. You will get our kids back in school, and there was a quick about face. And to the point about them trying to enshrine it in our Illinois Constitution here, not going to happen. We'll make sure that it doesn't happen. There is no reason whatsoever that unions need to have anything enshrined in any state constitution anywhere in these United States, period. Anyway, aside from that, let's see. So, this guy. This is rather interesting. Dating back to 44's tenure here, the old gun running scheme that had Eric Holder and company. We get this out of Just the News. Says Mexican Attorney General charges 7 people in Fast and Furious gun trafficking scandal. So, unlike our folks here, because of legalese and, Eric Holder at the time investigated himself and found himself to not have found done anything wrong. Mexico thought otherwise. Says among those charged in the decade-plus-old case are the country's former police commander and now incarcerated drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Says Mexican prosecutors have announced charges against 7 individuals in connection with the decade-old Fast and Furious weapons trafficking scandal. Says the botched operation took place during Obama's first term and involved agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, allowing criminals at the U.S. border to purchase firearms with the intention of tracking the weapons and ultimately reducing criminal cartel activity across and on the U.S. border. The agency, however, lost track of most of the guns, including the 2 that were discovered at the scene of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry's murder in 2010. Mexican officials now say that the gangs involved with drug trafficking and former government officials also participated in what became a weapons trafficking operation. The office of the country's attorney general announced trafficking charges Sunday against 7 people, including the nation's former top police official and infamous drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who is currently serving a life sentence in U.S. prison. Former federal police commander Luis Cardenas Palomino was also charged. He had previously been arrested in Mexico on charges of torture, and U.S. prosecutors have accused him of accepting millions of dollars in bribes from the Sinaloa cartel. So, interesting development there. Again, so many, you remember, the funny thing, KB, I don't know if you were following politics here stateside back when 44 was in office or not, but perhaps you'll remember some of the quips. I don't remember if it was at the end of his first term or second term, says, we have just run the most scandal-free administration, I think, ever, right?
That was his mantra.
Scandal-free.
Talking about El Chapo, I recall that the minute he started naming politicians that he'd been paying off, that was conveniently taken out of the public eye. So there were definitely deals done. And while he was naming names, I recall that the press was avoiding all mention or any mention of such a thing. So who knows what worms are still going to come out of that.
Yeah, agreed. And who knows, at the end of the day, whether or not these folks like Eric Holder and everybody else behind the scenes will ever be held to account. I think I don't know if you remember seeing this, but I know I've come across this in the past that at least the theory was a lot of this gun running and that ended up through Mexico likely ended up being tied to what took place on September 11th, 2012 in Benghazi through a little hideout net that was a safe house that nobody knew about. And, it took out four good people at that time.
Yes, I did see that. But I think there's a much wider criminal syndicate that's been definitely involved with Stinger missiles. So I think a lot of the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. I think there are those of us who've been, as you say, paying attention for the last couple of years, or know or have at least a good idea of what was going on. But I think some of this is now breaking out into the mainstream, and surely there must be people out there who were previously unaware, or maybe blissfully unaware, of what all the shenanigans that were going on by governments. But more and more, day by day, I think the people are actually starting to understand that most governments are actually just criminal syndicates.
Absolutely.
And I think people are starting to ask those questions, And I guess, I don't know, it's my opinion only. I think it's the behavior of these politicians that are actually driving people to actually say, hold on a second, none of this is making sense, or at least some people. So in that, I'm hopeful.
Very good. Let's see here. I'll drop a link out there for old Zelda who wants to get over on Twitch on our 5x5 channel over there. Check that out. Let's see. Aside from that, more along the lines of election integrity, I got a couple pieces out of Judicial Watch here in recent days. I got this, says exclusive Judicial Watch uncovers dirty voter rolls, fights for election integrity. This out here today, actually. And much like at the onset of the midterms in 2018, and again, even in 2020, Judicial Watch was pressing a lot of this. I think if you recall, we saw them try to clean up the voter rolls net in Orange County, California at the time, to which they found millions of dead folks voting and says, hey, get this stuff straightened out. The pursuit continues. It says, in a high impact case of potential voter fraud, you'll learn about
warning. These social media platforms may be hazardous to your health. Censorship kills.
Bear with me here a second. It says in a high-impact case of potential voter fraud, you'll learn about only from Judicial Watch. A new investigation reveals likely ineligible voter registrations around the country. Now, in November, Judicial Watch's election integrity team sent letters to officials in 5 states warning of apparent serious violations of the National Voter Registration Act. Now, the NVRA is a critical election integrity measure that directs the states to make, quote, a reasonable effort to remove from voting rolls the names of ineligible voters who have been disqualified from voting due to death or failure to provide notification of change of residence. Now, dirty voter rolls matter. That sounds like that should be equipped for a t-shirt. But leaving the names of inactive voters on registration rolls creates opportunities for fraud, such as dead people voting or double voting. Sometimes it takes only a few votes to swing an election. Now, the number of potentially ineligible voters identified in the new Judicial Watch probe are staggering. The NVRA requires states to remove registrations of voters who fail to respond to an address confirmation request and then fail to vote in 2 consecutive elections. States are required by federal law to report to Congress how many ineligible voters are removed from the rolls for this reason. Judicial Watch mined the statutory reporting data for some astonishing revelations. Over the most recent 4-year reporting period, large counties and powerful states such as New York and California reported few or no removals of ineligible voters from voting rolls. Two very blue states, we might add, right? Obviously, as I mentioned at the onset of the article here, Judicial Watch was going after Orange County. I can't remember if it was 2018 or 2020, but I do remember the article. Probably have it in the archive somewhere. But this is a known problem. And, they're going at it here yet again. It says, for example, in the heart of New York City, Manhattan, with 1.2 million registered voters, state authorities removed a grand total of 2 ineligible voters from voting rolls for failing to respond to a notice and vote, according to data New York itself provided to Congress. 2 people out of 1.2 million. Seems legit, right? Nuts. It says in Brooklyn, with 1.7 million registered voters, the number removed for this reason, 0. In Queens, with 1.3 million registered voters, the number removed is ineligible, 0. In the Bronx, with 867,000 voters, 1 ineligible voter removed. And Staten Island, with 344,000 voters, 0. All right, so quick and dirty math there. 1.2 million, 1.7, that's 2.9. 4.2, we'll say another million, 5.2. And another 300, so 5.5 million voters out of those areas. And what was the total count? 3? That's all they find out of 5.5 million? It's literally like trying to find a needle in a haystack, according to them. I'm sure it's rampant. The story is the same in California. Large counties show impossibly small numbers of ineligible voters removed from voting rolls for failing to respond to a notice and vote. And San Bernardino County in Greater Los Angeles, with a county population of 1.2 million registered voters, a total of 14 ineligible voters were removed from the voting rolls for the entire 4-year reporting period. And that's according to data the state provided to federal officials. For Sacramento County, with over 1 million registered voters, 0 removed. And Fresno County, with more than 500,000 registered voters, 2 ineligible voters removed. So 2 and 14, that's 16 out of 1.2, 1.7. What was the other? 1 million, 2.7 million. Ridiculous. Says about 10% of Americans move every year, notes Robert Popper, Judicial Watch's Director of Voting Integrity Efforts. Those counties should generate hundreds of thousands of canceled registrations. There is simply no way to comply with federal law while removing so few outdated registrations under its key provision. Judicial Watch sent warning letters to state election officials in 5 states: New York, California, Oregon, Arkansas, and Illinois. Take a gander how many of those are blue states versus red states, folks. It says noting the impossibly low numbers of statutory removals. The warning letters give the state 90 days to correct the record. If the data are incorrect, the Judicial Watch letters note, please provide what you believe to be the correct numbers. If the numbers are not corrected or otherwise resolved within 90 days, we will commence a federal lawsuit. And of course, there's the letters now that they sent. Judicial Watch supporters know this is not the first rodeo. In California, we uncovered 1.6 million inactive voters on electoral rolls in LA County and sued, forcing LA to clean up its act. We sued Pennsylvania for failing to make reasonable efforts to remove ineligible voters from their rolls. Pennsylvania revised its numbers, admitting it had reported incorrect information to a federal agency on the removal of ineligible voters. But even the new figures are too low. Pennsylvania now admits that in 18 other counties, which together contain 25% of the entire state's registered voters, it removed a grand total of 15 inactive, ineligible voters in a 2-year period. And we went to court in Colorado, where studies have shown that a majority of the state's counties have registration rates that exceed 100% of the voting age population. Our lawsuit charges an ongoing systemic problem with Colorado's voter list maintenance obligations. I filed a lawsuit in North Carolina for the very same reason. Large numbers of ineligible voters on the state voter rolls. And we've successfully taken on Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana as well. In Ohio, the Supreme Court decision upheld a voter roll cleanup stemming from a Judicial Watch lawsuit. In Kentucky, we sued for a voter roll cleanup and won. Indiana agreed to clean up its rolls after Judicial Watch launched an investigation. And the new warning letters put California on notice again and expand Judicial Watch's electoral integrity work into New York, Oregon, Arkansas, and Illinois. Once again, Judicial Watch is leading the charge for clean voter rolls and election integrity, says Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. These letters are just the beginning of another sweep, and federal court, if necessary, to clean voter rolls throughout the country. So there you have it. Yet again, highlighting the fact that, it's perfectly okay, especially if you're in a blue state, apparently, to just, thwart federal rules and things of that nature about cleaning up your voter rolls. It's just some typical stuff to sweep under the rug when nobody's looking, I suppose, huh?
Well, it's certainly the Union Party is also guilty. Let's face it, there's so many rhinos in the Republican Party that they're not actually stepping up to clean up those voter rolls. And what was astounding to me was the one Judicial Watch report that I read perhaps 2 weeks ago, where there was an argument as to why some dead people should not be removed from the voter rolls. I mean, I found that so ludicrous and almost, I thought I was living in a parallel universe when I was reading the article. I mean, how do you keep, and what kind of justification can you have for keeping dead people on a voter roll? There's a lot of stuff is not making much sense, I think. But none of this could be taking place without just general corruption amongst the leadership of both parties, actually.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting to see that Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana also made the list, because typically Ohio's sometimes a bit of a swing state, can go either way. But here as of late, like Indiana, Kentucky, and those usually go red. But you're absolutely right. It's the Uniparty. It's a big club and you ain't in it. They want to protect what's their own. That's why there's no appetite whatsoever. Like what we just saw play out here. I can't think of the guy's name that Trump had endorsed and then turned his back. It escapes me. Anyway, he had run to Mitch McConnell or something. McConnell come out here in the last day or two saying, yep, I agree with him. No issues found. Well, the problem with that is, Mr. McConnell, and we know this because an article has been written about what took place in the last election, even with your own numbers and how they were rigged. There was a lot of questions in that regard on how somebody as unpopular as Mitch McConnell somehow managed to worm his way right back in. And I can't remember if it was Envolve or who it was. I probably have it in the old archives. A good breakdown of what happened in some of the counties there, supposedly that flipped in order to make Mr. McConnell where he's at. So you're absolutely right in that regard. It's both parties, the Uniparty, essentially trying to protect their own.
We're seeing the same things happen here in South Africa. The official opposition is useless. So,
yep.
I mean, and again, you can extrapolate that across the planet. If you have a look at what's going on in the UK between the Labour Party and the Conservatives, or the so-called Conservatives, it's much of a muchness. So they all seem to be walking or marching in lockstep with one another. It's happening in Greece. I'm close to what's happening there. All across. In fact, the entire ruling class should be actually got rid of. And I think that's the objective of we the people. We have to keep on doing this. And I'm really pleased to see that the grassroots movement in the US appears to have really taken hold, and people are taking control of the counties at a county level. And again, one of the reports that I saw yesterday was very encouraging in that people are volunteering to go and be there to help with counting, votes, and to ensure that none of this skullduggery that happened in the previous election happens again.
Right. And, kind of speaking to the folks in the audience here today, especially those that are stateside here, maybe this is a good exercise for you. How many of you guys can actually name your county clerk? Might be a good exercise in getting you acclimated to your local governments and the various counties and that you reside in, because at the end of the day, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is the county clerk ultimately that maintains these roles. And so who ultimately holds the clerk to account when the job isn't done for cleaning up said roles? So again, it's incumbent upon us, part of the strategy in taking this back has got to be the grassroots level and getting local, knowing your townships, knowing your cities, your towns, your counties, commissioners, boards of elections, things of that nature. Who's the head of the said boards? Who reports to who is accountable to whom? And when they're not held to account, what happens? And that's where we, the people, obviously come in and need to be loud and boisterous in some cases and making sure that they are held to account when cases like what was spoken of here out of Judicial Watch are not done. So aside from that, one other piece out of Judicial Watch here today, another suit that they're pursuing that's come out yesterday, says Judicial Watch sues CIA for communications with General Mark Milley targeting President Trump. And I guess I don't really understand the angle they're going here at the onset, why they would go after the CIA as it pertains to Milley, potentially undermining the president and not taking direct orders. I don't know. I'll have to read this and figure their angle here. But Judicial Watch announced today that it filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the Central Intelligence Agency for records of communications and meetings between, then CIA Director Gina Haspel and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley. There's the suit number 121 civil case 03387. Says the lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia on December 31st, 2021, after the CIA failed to respond to a September 15th, 2021 Judicial Watch Freedom of Information Act request for all records of communications between CIA Director Gina Haspel and General Mark Milley between November 1st, 2020 and January 20th, 2021. Key dates obviously encapsulating the January 6th stuff going on. All records regarding all meetings between CIA Director Gina Haspel and General Milley between November 1st, 2020 and January 20th, 21. This includes all summaries, notes, and transcripts, as well as all records created in preparation for, during, or pursuant to any such meeting. Now, Milley and Haspel reportedly had at least one conversation in which President Trump was attacked as being part of a coup. Says it ought to be disturbing to all Americans that the head of the CIA and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs were reportedly conspiring against the President of the United States, said Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Says our new lawsuit will hopefully ferret out the truth about any plots to undermine President Trump by the military and CIA. On March 5th, 2021, Judicial Watch filed a FOIA lawsuit against the DoD for records about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's January 8th, 2021 telephone call with Milley. Pelosi acknowledged a call in a January 8th letter to her colleagues. So aside from the other shenanigans going on the Hill, the Ray Epps and January 6th committees and the farcical committee on the House side, Apparently, Judicial Watch is doing some legwork behind the scenes also to try and capture via FOIAs any pertinent conversations that might paint a little bit different picture about this quote unquote insurrection that took place on January 6th, 1 year ago.
It keeps on bringing back to me how many times President Trump said, we caught them all, we have it all. And I mean, there were certain drops that alluded to the fact that there was another agency that perhaps has got all this information. It's quite interesting that this level of
no detail, such agency.
Yeah. And this level of detail that Judicial Watch has, I think it's quite interesting and encouraging. So, drip, 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 as you say.
Yep, drip, drip, drip. However, as we well know with FOIA requests, what usually ends up happening is you get a nice redacted couple of pages in a PDF, and it's pretty much useless. So I don't know that I would expect much different, even if it's Judicial Watch, because what they get, they're going to publish and put out to the masses, and we're going to read it. So I don't know. We'll see what it shakes out, but I guess maybe I'm a little bit of a pessimist in regards to what we've seen from the clowns in action in the past.
I think there's a reason to be pessimistic because they've managed to cover up so much in the past and continue to do so. But I think the relentlessness of Judicial Watch, I mean, he should be given the keys to some city or be given some kind of accolade, Tom Fitton, and his entire organization.
Not bad for a guy who's not a lawyer by trade.
I think that's probably one of his redeeming qualities.
Yep.
But yeah, and then we've got, I think, interesting things happening in the background with regards Durham. So, we're almost seeing a convergence. We're seeing the FBI, the credibility of the FBI has gone straight down the toilet. And one of the things that
could get any worse.
It just happens to, yeah. I mean, I've always said that the FBI was destroyed by Hoover and was on a steady path downhill ever since.
Right.
So, and they keep on, showing themselves up to be anything but friendly to the country. And if anything, I mean, we're starting to see state apparatus that's been used against the people. And,
they don't have our interests in mind, period.
No, they never have. I mean, even if you go and have a look at this thing against Fauci with DARPA, I mean, DARPA's trying to cover their butt and almost hang Fauci out to dry when they're probably as complicit as he was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we all know about Facebook, we all know about DARPA, we all know about what they've done with climate, trying to affect the climate with what they've been pumping into the air, what they're pumping into the water, certainly not looking after our interests as humans. So, if anything, I think, maybe more and more people are starting to actually, have a look around them and say, well, actually the government doesn't really care much for us, so why would they be pushing things like this vaccine? Why would they be giving us dirty water? I mean,
it's for your benefit, of course.
And you go back to Trailer 44 and have a look at what happened in Flint, Michigan with the water.
Yeah.
What's ever happened there?
Not a whole lot. They did hold a Republican governor to account, and I don't know if he got a slap on the wrist or fine, but of course, nobody else got held to account. They just had to do a little political witch hunting in that and blame the Republican governor at the time. That was before Whitmer.
I mean, yeah, it keeps on getting worse and worse for the ruling class. And why should people in general actually have any trust or faith in the fact that the government's there? In fact, they're there to do not our bidding necessarily, but they're there to do work on behalf of the voters, which none of them appear to be doing at all.
Right. So that's probably a good lead in, being you brought up Facebook and DARPA and all that, because that's a good segue into what I'm about to cover here, and that's Google canceling science. And of course, Google as yet another DARPA related program that got spun up, the NQTEL types. And we get this out of Liberty Nation. It says, you get highly ideologically filtered results whenever you use the Google search engine. The tech behemoth's latest casualty is Dr. Roy Spencer, one of the scientists responsible for generating the global satellite temperature average featured by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, demonetized. And it says, recently, Spencer published a message saying he had received an email from Google that his blog had been demonetized, meaning he can no longer receive any ad revenues from Google AdSense. The reason? Unreliable and harmful claims. We've heard that before, haven't we? Says, is Spencer peddling conspiracy theories, denying the greenhouse effect, anti-vaxxer material, or similar ideas? No, not at all. He is a respected and widely cited scientist and a significant contributor to the IPCC, which accepts that computer climate modeling is a valid enterprise. He just doesn't believe in the most outlandish catastrophic warning scenarios pushed by the doomsters. For this sin of not being a radical environmentalist who believes the world is ending, Google has demonetized him and labeled him harmful and unreliable. Now, Spencer says he is not losing any sleep over lost ad revenue because it amounted to rounding errors in his income. Nevertheless, it raises the issue that Google, which has no expertise in climate science, puts itself above one of the leading climate experts in the world. Desmog. This behavior is no fluke. Let's see. Oh, apparently this must be a subscriber version here. Didn't realize that, but nonetheless, I think we get the idea. It seems like, we knew this day would come. First, they were going to go for the low-hanging fruit and get all the conservatives off, and then they were going to circle back around and start getting their own. So it's literally a case of the left eating their own at this point, and they won't stop until there's nothing left. And by then, thankfully, these guys will go by the way of MySpace, and we will have built something better to replace them with.
I've got another meme for that. It's quite a good
All right.
Has that come up?
Yep. Got a stroke right after the jab. Must have been that climate change. Narrative change. That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, you know, the left do what they do, and they do manage to destroy themselves. And, you know, we're watching them destroy themselves time after time. We're watching the politicians doing the most, you know, if anything. I was having a chat to somebody today who's he's got a master's in statistics. And I actually said to him, how come you're on the same page as me with regards to the jab and all of these things? And he used one word, and he said logic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's nice to see that people are out there that come to the same conclusion. And I do believe we're in the majority. I certainly don't think that we're in the minority fighting this big fight, as much as the media would like us to think that, we should be put out to pasture, mostly because we conspiracy theorists. It's not the case.
Well,
I think we've got the majority on our side. Well, certainly the way from where my vantage point is, sitting outside, whether it be in Europe or even in South Africa.
but that's where, you know, the likenesses of what Dr. Malone was just talking about on the Rogan Experience about the mass psychosis comes to play. You know, these people who sit in front of a tube all day long watching clown news or MSDNC or some other, mainstream broadcast, and that, you know, would get the illusion or delusion, perhaps, that all is doom and gloom. And if they continue to be spoon-fed and pump that into their heads, then of course, yes, that would be the case. And that's what they want people to believe, when in fact they themselves are the ones in the minority projecting everything as if they're much bigger than they really are.
Absolutely. I think what actually astounds me is that I'm in contact mostly because of financial stuff with a lot of journalists, and there are so many out there that believe this whole narrative. It's I don't think they've just necessarily been indoctrinated, or perhaps they have, but it's not as if they bought and paid for all of them. But a lot of them are so much in lockstep with they because I think they're in their own echo chambers, and sadly they do have so much power, and that's why I'm really looking for perhaps things like Truth Social, or these alternative sources of information, or at least marketplaces where people can actually put forward ideas. And we can have a reasonable debate with people, and we don't have to agree.
Well, I was going to say the other side of that, KB, is that it's almost like people have not been taught how to actually research on the net in the age of censorship. And maybe that's a class worth teaching. I know I've covered that. Oh boy, it's been probably 6-8 months ago. I did kind of a walkthrough of some various search engines and that, kind of a live demonstration of the comparable results you might get across the board. Maybe it's worthy of folks who are in the know on how to work around the censorship on that. People automatically think that when I go out and do a search, if I don't see everything on Facebook or my Twitter feed, then there is no more internet. The internet is Facebook and Twitter. No, it's not. There's a whole world to be explored outside of that. You just got to know how to work around it. And so people say, well, I just need to Google it, thinking that Google is actually safe and legit and is going to get you what you want to find. Well, no, it's not. You can get drastically different results if you run the same search versus what I run, same terms, same everything, based on your sphere of things that you've looked at in the past. We could get starkly different results. And people don't realize that. And so you have to try and find various other search engines. Some are better than others. All to some degree pair off of Google and or Bing to some degree. But unless and until people actually start kind of building their own, dare I say, database of information and that can be shared later on, we're going to have to kind of rebuild this thing in a Internet 2.0 or 3.0, if you will, outside and around the likes of the Googles and that, who have pigeonholed a lot of this information.
Well, to that point, I'm fortunate that for the past 35 years being involved in financial markets, research is what I have to do. And you get to learn certain techniques, and you actually need to actually go that extra mile. So even if the internet wasn't censored, which we know it is, if you do a search on any search engine, you're actually only covering 1/3 of the information that's out there. Now think about that. 1/3 of 1%. So when you do your cursory search, it's actually, you're really not going anywhere. So I'm not necessarily encouraging people to use Tor browsers and go into the dark web, because that's really some unpleasant stuff that you can uncover. However, you have to go that extra mile. So whether it be to actually go to medical websites, there's a lot of information available. Whether you go to court documents and you've got to learn how to start accessing those, whether it be the FOIA requests, none of this information is going to fall into your lap. So you have to actually go and make a concerted effort and be patient and learn the various techniques. So it might be worthwhile doing another show. I'll be happy to do it with you and just give people some pointers in what to do.
Yeah, it might be worth doing yet again. Like I said, I could probably resurrect one from the old archives that I've done in the past, where I walked through I think I did about 6 different browsers. And, by far and large, you get fairly similar results all across the board. However, it just depends on what you're looking for. And the other thing I'll say is this: if you've got a news outlet that you like, that you respect and think they do a good job, pay attention to the links and the various contributors net to said site. And by that, I mean, for whatever reason, I had the good fortunes of starting to follow Zero Hedge probably at least a good 8, almost 10 years ago now. And you learn a lot from these websites. You kind of see the ebb and flow of the type of material, the various contributors, things of that nature. And from that, you kind of spiral out, if you will, finger out into various other sources, which leads to other good sources. And then lo and behold, pretty soon you've got a list of 200 different outlets that you can go to at the ready and find the stuff, thereby bypassing having to go through a search engine at all. And so, frankly, I think that's an even better route. But, you know, to the unbeknownst, they don't know that, say, a Gateway Pundit or an Epoch Times or PJ Media or Zero Hedge or any of those sites are places where they should be looking for decent information.
There's so much information out there. You know, we just have to learn how to access it. And yeah, and I think one of the things that you did, which recently was you sent out, I called it a veritable treasure trove of information and resource documents that, you know, it might be worthwhile that you put out into the chat on a regular basis. But again, even there, people have to know and understand how to access it and how to use it. Yeah. So, but there is so much out there, and I think you've done a brilliant job at sharing information, because that's what it's all about, folks. Sharing information. It's one thing to actually get information. It's certainly a different thing to go and verify it.
Yep.
And while there's certain things that I might even believe, the fact is I don't put much credibility on it unless I can actually prove it.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you what, switch gears up a little bit here. I see that Chad had just dropped something in regard to Prince Andrew, and I do have something in my stack of goodies here today along those lines. And that is this piece out of News Punch here. It says, Judge rules that Prince Andrew's sex abuse trial will go ahead. And that's a little bit of a surprise, especially given the fact that we know here in the last 6-8 months or so that supposedly the FBI has politely asked Prince Andrew to, perhaps have a little chat, as it were, and maybe provide some documents, things of that nature, to which he did not oblige. And now we get this, and it says Prince Andrew will face a court battle with his rape accuser, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, a judge has ruled. Says U.S. Judge Lewis A. Kaplan's dismissed a motion by the Duke of York's legal team to have the lawsuit thrown out. Now, the judge's decision is a huge blow for the Duke, whose lawyer argued earlier this month the case should be thrown out because Giuffre had waived her right to pursue Prince Andrew by signing a settlement with pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The Sun reports Prince Andrew's lawyers argued he was covered by a part of the settlement in which he also agreed not to sue any other person or entity who could have been included as a potential defendant. But David Boies, Ms. Giuffre's lawyer, said only the parties of the settlement agreement, Epstein and Ms. Giuffre, and their associates could benefit from it, and not a third party such as Andrew. Now, Judge Lewis A. Kaplan agreed and said the 2009 agreement cannot demonstrate clearly and unambiguously show the parties intended to benefit Prince Andrew. At this stage, it's unclear whether Andrew will give evidence in person via a video link or refuse to participate. Virginia claims she was trafficked by a sick duo, Epstein and Maxwell, to be abused by Andrew after meeting him at a nightclub in London. And of course, you remember the BBC, I think it was BBC, right, interview he gave where he purportedly says, it couldn't have been me because I couldn't sweat. Wasn't me. And it is alleged that she was taken back Ghislaine's townhouse where she was forced to have sex with the royal, who was at the time aged 41. Andrew strongly denies all allegations against him and also claims he had no knowledge of any wrongdoing by his pals Maxwell and Epstein. And of course, reputation's in tatters. The Duke could face a trial which may see him having to give a deposition to a U.S. court, and a parade of witnesses trotted out regarding the allegations. Andrew's lead attorney, Andrew Bretler, argued that his client should be covered by it because Ms. Giuffre had mentioned royalty in her civil complaint against Epstein. But his arguments was met with skepticism at almost every turn by Judge Kaplan. At one point, he told Bretler, "That's not a dog that's going to hunt here." Virginia's settlement has been kept under seal, but judges last month ordered it to be released yesterday unless good cause could be shown otherwise. But her legal team successfully argued that the agreement should not stop her case against Andrew. They previously said the agreement was an attempt by Andrew to use a get-out-of-jail-free card. Andrew has repeatedly denied all allegations against him, which includes rape in the first degree, and his attorneys have claimed his accuser has a tendency to change her story. They also previously warned that she could be creating false memories with her claims. Virginia, now 38 years old, claims she was enticed by the Duke of York's pal Maxwell and lured into pedo Epstein's six sexual pyramid scheme. She alleges she was forced to have sex with Andrew on 3 occasions in London, New York, and on Epstein's island, Little St. James. Her legal team argues she was a frightened, vulnerable child with no one there to protect her when she was allegedly abused by Andrew, saying no person, whether president or prince, is above the law. Outrageous conduct. Andrew is named as the only defendant in the suit, brought under New York State's Child Victim Act, but Epstein and Maxwell are mentioned frequently throughout. She is seeking unknown amounts of compensation and punitive damages over the allegations. Virginia claims she feared for her life when she was allegedly forced to have sex with Andrew, who is accused of having been aware of her age and status as a sex trafficking victim. Court docs claim Ms. Giuffre was lent out for sexual purposes by convicted sex offender Epstein, including while she was still a minor under U.S. law. The docs added, the alleged assaults have caused and continue to cause her significant emotional and psychological distress and harm. Prince Andrew's actions, described above, constitute extreme and outrageous conduct that shocks the conscience, the lawsuit stated, as it described the emotional distress suffered by Ms. Giuffre. Prince Andrew's sexual abuse of a child who he knew was a sex trafficking victim, and when he was approximately 40 years old, goes beyond all possible bounds of decency and is intolerable in a civilized community, it added. And I guess one more point to add to that is that I think some recent reports also highlighted that the Queen is not willing to ante up the dollars for his defense. And I think it's come out that he had to do a quick fire sale of a property. What was it, in Switzerland? I think it was, perhaps, to add some dollars to his coffers to be able to mount a defense against this. So bottom line, it looks like this is going to go on regardless, and this is going to be an interesting one to watch, I think, how this is going to play out.
I mean, I wonder how much of that is optics with regards to the Queen's actions, because let's face it, the royals haven't, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that we have Jimmy Savile, who was knighted by the Queen, who happened to be best friends with Prince Charles, who just, upon his death, was found out to be not only just a pedophile, not only just a procurer of children for the rich and powerful, but the many disgusting things and that he was found guilty of. The least of which was, and I'm not meaning to demean it at all, but abusing young girls at the BBC as well. So the royals have got a lot of skeletons in their cupboards, and I think people are actually starting to understand this. And interesting enough, I don't know if you saw, but they have knighted or intend knighting Tony Blair. And
major backlash.
Major, and there's almost 1 million signatures already.
Yep.
against that. So, you know, the royals themselves, there are a lot of questions to be asked. I mean, we won't go down that rabbit hole of Diana and whatever happened to her, etc., etc. But they're not covering themselves in glory right now.
Oh, of course not. Yeah, it's not looking too good for the royals at the moment. And, you know, whether it be the black sheep, Prince Andrew, you know, what was it, last year before last, when some of this stuff was starting to worm its way through the media and some stuff was coming out. I think he got disinvited to some birthday parties and things of that nature, and people started to really distance themselves from him. Perhaps the writing is on the wall for him, and perhaps, you know, we may see something done. What that is, I don't know. Frankly, I don't trust either the UK's system of justice, nor do I trust ours here. So I'm going to be curious to see what exactly will be done in the event, you know, this ends favorably for Ms. Giuffre.
Yeah, I've actually just got another meme. I mean, meme warfare mode. I found this one quite interesting. The sister of Ghislaine Maxwell is technology pioneer of the World Economic Forum. FFS, and people still call you a conspiracy theorist. Whenever you say there is an elite secret society ruling over us, and why it's quite correct. You can't make this stuff up. And you know, leading into what's going on in terms of the world of pedophilia, etc. I'm sure you're aware of what's been going on at CNN themselves.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So we're starting to see news of this hitting the surface. And I also believe that with this push to try and vax children, you know, the job of society is actually to protect the vulnerable, you know, whether it be the elderly or children. And I think we're starting to see people fighting back against all these things. And now that there seems to be this massive convergence of things happening from all sides, whether it be from the vaccinations, whether it be from pedophilia, whether it be from the stolen election, etc., whether it be from January the 6th, all the stuff's coming out, and there has to be a point at which people are saying, well, this is enough. And I think we're closely reaching that point.
Yeah, this whole winter of discontent thing that they want to try and foment, you know, I think perhaps we reached the precipice at this point? Are we in the storm? Are we on the backside of the storm? Are we about to get hit with the backside of the storm if we've been in the eye of the storm? Whatever it is, something is about to break, and it's a matter of which side is it going to break to the good or to the bad. As of right now, at least from the, I would say, COVID standpoint, it looks like it's starting to break to the good because we're seeing a lot more pockets of resistance. You know, even here today, we find out that the Tedros and company over at the World Health Organization is siding with the European Union version of the CDC, saying, I'm not so sure about this fourth jab business. You might overtax your immune system here. And I mean, dear God, even in the last 24 or 48 hours, there was this back and forth between Bill Gates and I can't think of the scientist or researcher he was going back and forth with. Basically got him to admit that limitations to them.
Well, even the natural immunity argument is actually...
Well, aside from, go ahead.
Sorry, breaking. You were actually rabbiting. It was you were roboting there for a minute. I didn't hear what you said.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that we're starting to see so many of their narratives falling apart, and you know, let's just think of the natural immunity discussion. That seems to be picking up some kind of traction. whether it be in Switzerland, whether it be in the UK, we certain, it appears that breaking has left us. And but nonetheless, you know, I do think that for those of us out there that are losing a bit of hope, don't. I think that the world is getting to a point. Perhaps we are reaching the precipice, and I think there's a lot more reason to be encouraged out there, people. And you know, we shouldn't actually be all that discouraged with what's going on. So my message to everybody that's listening is to keep on fighting, keep on doing the right thing. I think we will win in the end. We all know that we will. And for those of us who've been in this fight for so long, you know, I know that we're jaded. I know that we're tired, and I know that we've sacrificed a lot. But there's lots of reason to be hopeful. I think keep in prayer, keep your faith. There's lots of good things happening out there. They're not always that apparent. People have been making inroads. Breaking, we lost you for a couple of minutes. And are you back with us? It appears that we had a bit of a, perhaps we were touching on some interesting topics. Breaking, are you there?
Yep, that was interesting. Apparently, must have been something I said.
Yeah, it probably was, and I think.
All right. Well, aside from all of,
perhaps the powers that be didn't like what we were discussing, but in your absence, I was just saying to the listeners,
not sure
that we've got a lot of reason to be encouraged. And now's not, I know that perhaps the likes of you and I perhaps are a bit jaded and have been in the fight for a long time, but I think there's some not good signs that, you know, we appear to be winning.
Let's hope so. All right, let's see here. I got a couple more here, maybe before the guys jump on here at the top of the hour. Interesting piece here. And it says out of PJ Media, says, buddy, can you spare a pint? Red Cross declares blood crisis as donations plunge. I wonder why that would be. Well, perhaps when you start tainting the blood with folks now who have gotten some contaminants in it, as it were. The U.S. is in a blood crisis as blood drives have crashed during the Omicron COVID-19 wave. The Red Cross says that since the scamdemic began nearly 2 years ago, overall blood donations have been down 10%. But that could be just the beginning. The number of blood drives across the nation has plunged by nearly 2/3 in recent weeks as Omicron infects record numbers of Americans. Schools, reports the Daily Mail, whether colleges or public high schools, form the backbone of many blood donation efforts, but many have been canceled recently in the wake of COVID outbreaks. In a statement, the Red Cross says that this is the first ever national blood crisis, means the doctors have been forced to make difficult decisions about who receives blood, transfusions, and who will need to wait until more products become available. The Red Cross provides 40% of the nation's blood supply, according to the same statement. Also of importance, each Red Cross blood drive and donation center follows the highest standards of safety and infection control. Individuals who have received a COVID-19 vaccine are still eligible to donate blood and platelets. Knowing the name of the manufacturer of the vaccine they receive is important in determining blood donation eligibility. True story. Says the first time I ever gave blood was my freshman year at the University of Missouri, fall of '87. Red Cross had set up a donation station in the lobby of Hudson Hall where I made my home, and I was eager to give, but I was a little nervous too. I'm not scared of needles, but I'd also never donated blood. At lunch in the cafeteria, a bunch of us were engaging in the usual freshman joshing, dispelling our nerves with banter. Says one young man, a name I can't remember, but a face I can recall, looked much more serious and nervous than any of the rest of us did. Says I've been trolling since long before it was called that, so I decided to have a little fun. Nervous? I asked. Says, yeah, I've never done this before. I assured him I was an old pro at giving blood. 2 more pints and I get my gallon pin. I'd picked up some lingo from regular donors, teachers at my high school. Really? The kid perked up. Says, do you have any advice? I don't want to pass out or anything. Says, drink lots of milk. I said totally straight-faced and without hesitation. Blood is 80% milk. That accounts for its color. Almost lost it when he looked thoughtful for a moment, got up and went to the counter to fill up a couple of milk glasses, but he dutifully drank his milk and I somehow kept from cracking up. Says we all gave blood after lunch. Nobody passed out. The nurse gave us each a little red rubber ball to squeeze to help with the blood flow, and you can probably guess what a bunch of 18 and 19-year-old boys did with him. We turned it into a race to see who could fill their pint bag the fastest. We enjoyed the cookies and juice. Says then we did what all college freshmen should do after giving blood. We walked to the bar just off campus that rarely check IDs and proceeded to get seriously tipsy on just two $2 well drinks each. So the point of this silly reminiscence is this: giving blood is no big deal to you, but it's a very big deal to some sick or injured person who might die without it. It just occurs to me that I have one of the rare blood types, A negative, and it's been at least 2 years since I got the jab. The giving jab, that is, not the getting jab. Looks like I've got some giving to do, and I hope you will too. And of course, to that end, I think many people have probably asked the question, hey, how do they keep track of whether or not blood from jab versus unjabbed people remain separated? Do they indeed at all? Obviously, this article doesn't necessarily address that, but what happens if? What happens if you are in need of blood and the only thing that matches your blood type is perhaps somebody that took a Johnson & Johnson or Moderna or BioNTech shot? What do you do? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. But nonetheless, it appears that the old Red Cross is short at this particular time. And, knowing what we know after the last 4 years of dealing with our information behind the scenes, we know who owns the Red Cross as well, and the piles of cash they have stored in the back rooms of some of their places. I don't know. What's your take on this, KB?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we have been taught and have learned some things, and definitely my trust in the Red Cross is probably around the same level as my trust in the medical fraternity and politicians. So the one thing I do remember is that they came out with, I'm not sure if it happened in the US as well, but certainly out in South Africa, they declined any blood donations from jabbed people, which are, I think, for me, quite telling. That was the one thing. And the other thing, what to do about it, perhaps it's an opportunity, because I do know that there are certain places that you can actually store your own blood. So it might be a worthwhile exercise for people who are concerned about this kind of thing to actually go to a blood bank that their own blood is stored in case they need it themselves.
Yeah.
So, that might be one of the solutions. I don't know how practical it is, and I'm not quite sure how it works. But, if there was to be some kind of solution, I guess it would be something along those lines.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not something that we really talk about much, but are there practical solutions for the everyday folks who, let's say, have not been tainted, as it were? Periodically squeeze a pint out, I guess, for lack of a better term, and store your own. I don't know. Maybe that's an upstart business in the future. I don't know if there's certain requirements for refrigeration of it. Guess we'd probably have to find some folks smarter than ourselves to figure that end of it out. But maybe that's going to be the thing from here on out, so that we don't necessarily get crossed up.
Well, I certainly think, if you look at it, if you take a big step back, and I do believe that we are in the majority. I mean, we're just regular folk who want to get along and, have a decent life, feed our families, put a roof over our heads, and attend our religious services on a regular basis. I mean, really, that's the majority of the people out there. I don't think we're afraid of work. Now, the regular folk, if we had to band together, we've got all the buying power. And I do think that this parallel economy is not a pipe dream. I certainly do think like-minded individuals can get together, whether it be the unjabbed doctors and nurses, starting, little hospitals or clinics, or supporting our local mom and pop stores. I think, we have the power and we have the ability to actually take this thing forward and actually cut out all the bad actors, and create, if it needs be, a parallel economy. We can start growing our own food and bartering with our neighbors and, swapping a dozen eggs for a chicken or whatever it may be. I think there are a lot of things that we can do, that we can be proactive with our lives. So, yeah, I'm quite optimistic. I'm seeing a groundswell of people actually, well, maybe I should rephrase that. Maybe not a groundswell, but I've seen enough people out here in South Africa, doing practical things with regards, I guess you could call it prepping, but, starting to plant their own food, getting 1 or 2 chickens. And yeah, I think the way forward is an optimistic one, and people are starting to learn to take control. But it does take a bit of effort. It does take boycotting some of the big companies. I personally will never buy a Coke product, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. So just boycott the work companies, support your local mom and pop store. It may be marginally more expensive initially, but I don't think it's going to be that much more costly. I think, support your local butchery.
Yeah, absolutely. Or do your own.
Yeah, exactly. Work with people who are growing their own food. One of the things that I recently met a gentleman who's got an amazing, he's got a whole bunch of hives, and the honey that he produces out here is superb. It really is. So start sourcing your food from places that are reputable. Go out there and try and support people who are like-minded as we are. And I'm seeing more and more of that. So that's quite encouraging.
Yeah.
So
All
I think
right.
the way forward's not that bad.
No, it's definitely doable. It's just, frankly, I think people need to get back to their roots, those that know how, and those who have the skill sets and the know-how need to learn to teach others to do the same. And let's hope that we don't have a generation behind us that is completely lost. I can recall an article I covered here maybe a couple weeks ago on the morning show, highlighting the fact that part of the reason the millennials and Gen Zers, I think that was the age groups, didn't know how to do basic home repairs, and that was part of the reason why they were reluctant to own homes. Everything from basic toilet repair to, the simplest of things like changing the light bulbs or even filters in their furnaces, for example. They would prefer to call somebody to have it done, or don't know how, things of that nature. And it's like, dear God, how hard can that possibly be? But apparently I was surprised.
Yeah, it hasn't been that encouraging when you look at that generation. And interestingly enough, they're the ones that are the most afraid of the virus. It's weird, but and this is just anecdotal, okay, and it's my personal experience. The ones that my heart really goes out to are the elderly, because they keep on getting bombarded by all this negative stuff and told that they could die, and they constantly live in fear, which is terrible. And again, the other extreme of the younger folk, and I'm talking about, I'm not quite sure what they're called, but the 20-year-olds right now, they're the ones that are the most compliant when it comes to masks, and they look at me in horror when I laugh at this. I said, come on, guys, you as likely to die of this bug as you would be of drowning in a teaspoon of water. Get a grip. It's not that bad. But to your point, a lot of them, I don't know, I recall when I was in my teens, the biggest thing for me as a boy was I wanted to own my own car. Okay. My own motor vehicle, my own mode of transport. And yet I'm finding that these kids have got no interest in driving, which is bizarre to me. I mean, they're quite used to taking an Uber and
it's good until that service either gets broken or you have no means or ways of getting around and say a power outage, right? If you have no means of using your phone, you're pretty well screwed, or a PC or anything of that nature. Unless people own bicycles, but who wants to bicycle when it's 30 below and, wind chills of 50 below or things of that nature. And you absolutely have to have water or some amenity that you don't have in your house at the moment. So, maybe it's a lack of planning or understanding of how to be prepared for all situations. I don't know. But, at least from my perspective, it's always been a good thing to try and be prepared for any given situation that might come up.
Absolutely. And let's face it, I was perhaps at a point earlier than most people, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I kept on saying, I want to go completely analog. This digital stuff. I want to get off the grid. And, I don't want people to be able to track me. I don't want location on my phone. I don't need all this stuff, and it's, and a lot of people said to me, are you crazy? I mean, what have you got to hide? And it was never the point of hiding anything. It was the point of my own privacy, you know. And I think maybe more and more people are coming onto our way of thinking, But again, no one's going to give you your freedom. You've got to go out there and take it.
Absolutely.
And fight for it. So in whatever small way it might be, whether it's having cash, not worrying about where there'll be an ATM for you to go and draw your money, food security, all those things. That takes a bit of effort. It's not going to just be handed out to you. And unlike a lot of the left, where they just hope that the government looks after them, and I think they're going to be sorely disappointed. But, we really have to start caring for each other and caring for ourselves.
Agreed. And as usual, good segue into the last piece I'll probably hit here before the top of the hour. Says Washington, D.C. to combine photo ID with vaccine passport scheme. Civil liberties grind to a halt in the nation's capital. Piece out of Reclaim the Net here today. And of course, chances are this isn't the only city where this is taking place or state. Seeing a number of these crop up here as of late. The mayor of Washington, D.C. has decided to introduce new COVID restrictions to the U.S. Capitol starting on January 15th, when businesses and many venues will start asking for proof of vaccination, and on top, a picture ID as yet more proof that their vaccine pass really belongs to them. The new rules concerning ID verification will apply to everyone over 18 who wishes to enter a restaurant, bar, gym, movie theater, etc., and the mandate is being introduced by Mayor Muriel Bowser, of course a Democrat. Bowser announced the more stringent measures back in December. Children aged 12 to 18 will also have to show vaccination cards if they wish to enter restaurants, concert venues, bowling alleys, and other venues. In addition, these businesses will have to put a sign in their window that notifies customers and reads, "Attention, per Mayor's Order 2021-48, COVID-19 vaccination is required to enter this business, the Washington, D.C. government site explains. However, the inclusion of photo IDs in the vaccine mandate scheme in the district as an order coming from a Democrat mayor looks puzzling to those who recall that the party's leaders, including President Biden, Resident Biden, previously equated requiring photo IDs to vote to 21st century Jim Crow, referring to historical state and local racial segregation laws in the U.S. When Biden went after Georgia last summer for its new voter law that required citizens to prove their identity with an ID, he effectively accused the state and Republicans of introducing discrimination against minorities, who are most likely to lack picture IDs, saying the new legislation was un-American and designed to deny people their rights, in that case, the right to vote. Biden went on to accuse his political opponents of enacting a law that was a blatant attack on the Constitution and good conscience. But no such consideration seems to now be extended to Washington, D.C. residents who will have to show their ID cards, driver's licenses, passports, or another state-issued document to avoid getting cut off from many everyday activities. So again, if you are not seeing this crop up in cities near you, I've seen some various reports all around the country of where they're trying to enact this, mostly in blue states, of course. But this is the latest thing. And yes, throw their argument right back in our face. And if you're a business owner, what happens if you do not comply? Okay, yeah, they're going to yank your license, but do you need permission from good old Uncle Sam or your local government to operate? Really?
Well, the one thing is that we have to stand up united against this. There's no ways that we can allow this to happen. And, on that note, I'd like to share yet one more meme.
Okay. Yep, I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, what are we allowing them? Because it's a fact. It's about allowing the ruling class to do this to ourselves, and it's up to us not to allow it and to fight back with all we have.
Well, and the other way we get to make that decision via our either non-compliance or do not consent decree is we vote with our feet and our dollars. So all these bowling alleys, all these restaurants, all these bars, they'll get the hint once they start losing money and can no longer keep their doors open because of loss of foot traffic and patrons. And so then they're going to be crying back to the city councils and various mayors and things of that nature saying, hey, we're losing our tail here. Nobody's coming. What are they going to do? What happens when the local governments have no tax dollars coming in out of their local economies to fund their little operations? What then?
Again, yes, we have the power of voting with our money, and we should utilize it. And we should be very cognizant of what we do when we go out there to shop. It might be inconvenient to travel the extra mile and to go to a local store or that kind of thing, but that's the way we're going to win.
Yeah, I like to that point. I liken it to going across state lines here. If you want to buy gas, it doesn't have as many taxes attributed to a per gallon tax, or even cigarettes or things of that nature. People do it all the time, especially if you live close to the border of some of these states where perhaps. I'll just use cigarettes as an example here. Heck, I'm not even sure what they're up to these days. What is it, $4, $5, $6, $7 a pack these days? I'm not even sure. And most of what you pay for is taxation on that, an excise tax. Well, people get around that. They order cartons left and right, either online, or they go to a less restrictive state where instead of paying $7 a pack for cigarettes, whatever, they can go across state lines and get it for, say, $3 a pack. And so that's how people vote with their dollars and their feet.
And so we should. If you take South Africa, for an example, when it comes to cigarettes and gas, we pay roughly 50% of the price of gas is tax, so whether it be the taxes that we pay on what they call they call
sin tax, yep.
Sin tax, yes, on alcohol and cigarettes.
Yep.
So yeah, I think we have to do these things. We have to keep on fighting the system, because without all of us coming together, and I do believe we're the majority, and I do believe we're going to win this fight. We just have to go the extra mile to do it.
Yep.
And I just wanted to put one other thing up, because I thought it was quite pertinent to our earlier discussion with regards the jab and kids. And our job at the end of the day is to save the children. And this was an article that I saw that actually broke my heart, because the number of deaths that we've seen with children under the age of 12 has been rising quite dramatically across the planet, and it's incumbent upon us to actually spread the message that, people should consider what they do with their children and not really trust the state, because, we have to get the message out there that the young folk are being affected by this quite dramatically. Yep. And us seizing pixels is in the house.
See that? We're at the top of the hour.
Yeah. Hello, guys. Just waiting on Adel to get in here. What's going on?
Been a while.
Yeah, it has. It's been a while since me and Adel have been able to do the show on here, and I'm actually really excited. It should be fun.
And today we were down sunny, so hence we got KB and myself here to carry it the last couple hours, having a little back and forth with some of the stuff going on. Saw that you were on earlier ahead of the show here today. What all do you got to discuss?
Well, we did our... Adel does a show called Deplorable Discussions, where we all just kind of get on there and discuss the happenings of the day and or week. And then, of course, before that, at 3 Eastern, I did my show, The Breakdown, which I literally just go through the news of the day, whatever is out there. I go through as quickly as I can. So I did that earlier as well. Usually I do that at 6:30, but on Wednesdays, since I have this show here, I choose to do that at 3. So yeah, that's basically what's been going on today. Just covering the news. A lot of the news today has kind of been riding off the coattails of the past 2 days, as it's been like with the revelations with the Project Veritas release, and the line of questioning from Cruz to that FBI official. It was a really, really big day yesterday, and then today it just kind of felt, I don't know if you guys felt this as well, but it just felt kind of like things quieted down.
To some degree, maybe. I don't know. Every day is an adventure in this day and age. It just seems like the fire hose has been hooked up and has turned up to 11 in terms of flow, I think, at this point.
Yep. It's got its ups and downs, right? But we got a steady flow of information constantly, and that's what I'm looking for. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it keeps on coming. Drip, drip, drip.
Yep, exactly. Drip, drip,
yeah.
drip.
Yeah. How are you doing, Adel?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
All good.
Throat's all healed up.
Yeah, man. What a hellish, not hellish. Like, it wasn't the worst I've ever felt or anything, but just like bad enough to where you just can't get anything done or focus on anything for 2 weeks. It was super annoying. So I'm really glad to be back in the full swing of things here this week. It's been really refreshing.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good to have you back on the road to recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How have you been, KB?
Yeah, all good.
Good.
We're still fighting the fight. Things are looking up here in South Africa. We for whatever reason, it's almost as if the government here is backing off. We're starting to see a lot more people walking around without masks. We're starting to see people actually asking questions, fighting back. So, it's almost as if, what the hell are the government doing? They seem to be losing this war. And yeah, I'm fairly optimistic about the way forward. I know that there's various, and there's a lot of news coming out of the US, which we're following quite closely here. And I'm quite encouraged, so I'm fairly optimistic as to the way forward.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
That makes me happy to hear. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, Breaking, thank you once again for getting me on here on Wednesdays. I appreciate it. It's a good thing for the voice of Africa to be heard, at least in the US. We're all on the same page. And I think, more and more people are getting onto our side of the fence. And I'm very optimistic about the way forward. Perhaps we're going to go through a couple more road bumps, and it certainly looks that way. But, we've got to weather the storm and fight on and have faith.
Well, the fact that you have power and internet, I guess, is probably the main thing. So count your blessings in that regard.
Power, internet, and water, because those are the three things that the government here has managed to screw up. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's some, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, that the Parliament courts are light, the court, one of the, I can't stop laughing. There are two courts that courts a light, and we've had a municipality catch a light. So I'm sure it's just a coincidence, with what's been going on. And I've got a report that there was one of the parliaments in Australia caught light, but that's unverified. So, I saw that pop up on my feed a little earlier. So there's interesting things happening out there.
Always.
Guys, have a great show. And once again, Breaking, thanks again.
Sure thing. We'll see you back next week. And folks, thanks for tuning in this afternoon. Appreciate you. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Pixels and 412 to bring us home. Take care. God bless everybody.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. All right, Adel. I guess I'll ask the question, what are we going to be talking about today? What's on your mind?
Oh, we go any which way. There's COVID, there's voting integrity, and then there's January 6th.
Just like the past, a year and a half, right?
Well, you got something. We talk about inflation and how much everything's expensive and how the dollar is being destroyed. And I don't know how much more there is to say about it. The economy sucks, people. The economy sucks.
Yeah, the economy does suck. Well, I think what came out, 2 days ago now, it came out the day before yesterday night, which is weird to think about. The Project Veritas release, lending credence to the idea, or coming close to maybe proving it, that COVID is a man-made virus, right? That was made through collaboration between corrupt U.S. officials and the CCP. Am I wrong? Am I wrong there, or is that an accurate description of what we've essentially found out at this point?
It's what's 100% accurate.
So it's a bioweapon, and they released it most likely intentionally. I don't know how you could prove one way or another on whether it was released intentionally or not, but I think that the circumstances, right, make it indeed look like it was released on purpose, because look what they used it for.
Yep.
For 2 years.
Yeah, it was developed in a lab intentionally, most likely released intentionally, and then the cover up of all that has been extraordinary. So yeah, DARPA said no, there's rules against this kind of research. The NIH, Dr. Fauci, and the Eco Health Alliance or whatever, they decided that we could find a loophole around that and do it anyway. Which
right.
You got to wonder what kind of service or what are you trying to accomplish there? What's the best thing that can happen by performing that research? What's the worst thing that can happen? I don't see the worst thing that's happened is we destroy the world with a pandemic. Okay, so the best thing that can happen, you would think would be as good as that is bad. And I don't see the positive there.
I don't see any positive to gain of function research. Who in the right mind could see as a potential benefactor of all of us of taking a virus that can't infect humans and making it capable of infecting and harming humans? What could possibly be the beneficial freaking is there any beneficial result of that whatsoever that's possible, or am I correct in saying there's probably nothing beneficial about making viruses that can infect? You're taking a virus that can't infect somebody, and then now it can, and it's getting people sick. How could anything good come out of that? I'm strapping my brain for this right now to try and think of something good that could come out of that, but I can't. I just can't.
Yeah, there's really no good explanation as to why you would want to make a virus more deadly, other than you have nefarious plans for hurting somebody or a group of people with it, and that's exactly what we saw.
Yeah. So what do you think happens next, Adel? What do you think happens next, and maybe differently, what do you think needs to happen next?
Okay, what happens next is nothing. As far as accountability goes, nothing. Dr. Fauci was right back today giving another briefing, taking questions, doing his megalomaniac, egomaniac thing. So clearly, there's no fallout with his boss or the administration for any of this. There's not going to be a resignation. There's not going to be an admission of guilt or wrongdoing of any kind. You're going to see the media largely just say this is Republicans grifting and trying to make money off of a public health crisis, and that's going to be that. Dr. Fauci will be continued to be given a platform to lie and gaslight the American people. And you just kind of have to live with that. Unfortunately, they're not going to fire him. To fire Fauci would basically destroy anybody that followed his guidance. He is so well kind of insulated in his position. So many people have attached their wagon to his horse, or vice versa. I don't even know at this point. That I don't see it. I don't see him going anywhere in the near future. Now, what might happen is you might get more whistleblowers become emboldened, right? Like, you see this is always how it happens. You get that first one to come out, and then you get more to follow. So I'm hoping that you're going to see a cascade of new whistleblowers coming out, and it's just going to be constant needling, keep dragging them in front of Congress, keep having Rand Paul and, whoever else is willing to grow a set, beat them up a little bit, get those sound clips, and continue chipping away at this guy as much as you can. What needs to happen, if you want to go to the next step, what needs to happen is this man needs to be fired, arrested, tried for his crimes against humanity. And then we, the people, need to come up with the hellish, daunting task of figuring out what punishment fits the crime of the intentional manslaughter of hundreds of thousands of people. And that, I don't know what the answer to that is. But
I think you could look back to history for a couple examples that could guide us there.
Yeah. That's what needs to happen, though. Where we'll end up is who knows. But yeah, he needs to be tried. This needs to go through a criminal court.
I agree.
The evidence needs to be put out there, and the trial needs to be public for everyone to see.
I agree. And I think that with the current administration, there's just no way that not a snowball's chance in hell that it would happen. Not with the current Congress, not with the current Department of Justice, not with the current occupier of the White House. However, I think that story possibly changes if in 2022 we wipe the floor with the Democrats, which I believe is going to happen as long as I'm correct about them not being able to do what they did in 2020 again, just because of how much increased scrutiny and how many Republican poll watchers there are going to be that they won't be able to turn away this time. The new voting integrity law is going through in some states, right? I think that those are things that are going to stop the Democrats from doing what they did in 2020. So I think that if we manage to gain a really strong control of both houses of Congress, the House and the Senate, and then also in 2024 regain control of the White House and therefore the Department of Justice, I think that there could be a very good chance of Fauci being held accountable and other people being held accountable, but not until all of those things happen. And even if all of those things do happen, we have to be damn sure that the people we put in there are not, your Mitt Romney types who will bury it just as much as the Democrats do, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. We've got a long road ahead of us before people in positions like Dr. Fauci, see like criminal accountability for their actions. Let's just be real here. We live in a complete banana republic. There's a multi-tiered justice system, and unfortunately, Dr. Fauci,
the Biden regime is literally using our military to human traffic illegal aliens into states in the country. And totally, completely, it's out in the open. Everyone knows it's happening, and nothing's being done about it, okay? So that tells you where the rule of law is at right now.
Dr. Fauci could walk into any hospital in the country, probably, with the cameras on him, and pick the first COVID patient he can find and smother him with a pillow. And the mainstream media, the Democrats, and half of the Republicans would find a reason to celebrate him for it right now. And that's, I'm not even being hyperbolic. I truly believe that he could go in there and be like, well, he was going to spread the COVID to the bed next to him. He had to be stopped. And then you have Joe Scarborough be like, oh, these grifting white supremacists, these anti pillow smothering grifters over there, they just wanted all the rest of the hospital to die from, it's just, there's no accountability for people on Fauci's level right now. There's none, zero. And we're nowhere near getting it either.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think you're correct. However, I do think that the COVID narrative, the whole COVID situation, is dying. Would you agree with me there? It seems to me, from what I'm seeing, they're making a lot of big concessions with this thing. And I think the reason that they're doing that is the same reason they're pivoting away from Build Back Better and into federalizing elections. I think they're worried about 2022. They know that COVID is not good for them anymore. People are sick and damn tired of it. And so they're going to let COVID fade away and act like the heroes.
Well, they failed. They told people they were going to stop it. Now they're more responsible. They're responsible for more deaths than anybody else. And now that's when all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, but most of these deaths aren't really COVID deaths. It's like, oh, you mean like what we were saying for 2 years? Yeah, but it's on we're holding the bag now, and we don't like holding the bag. So, fuck you. Isn't that how it is too? Like, hey, I want to have a conversation about this because it doesn't line up. Oh yeah, no, it doesn't. Fuck you. Wait, no. But can you explain why before? Fuck you. Like that's like the response you get. Just like there's no conversation there. It's this way now. And if you say otherwise, you're either a racist, a domestic terrorist, a domestic racist, a racist terrorist, or some combination of those words, and you need to be fired and probably die, or thrown in jail. It's crazy. But that's the it's the same thing with like the Jeffrey Epstein thing, right? Like this is what we get. It's like here's what we originally say. Huge contradiction, major in-your-face cover-up, an admission of it. But still, we were always right and innocent the whole time. Oh, you have questions? Fuck you.
Right.
And it's just, you swallow it. You just sit there. You just have to swallow it. Like, what else do you do? Like, there's no next step. We investigated. We found the lies. We exposed the lies. We exposed the crimes. We put them on the plates of the people who could supposedly do something about it. And all we got met in return was, oh, you didn't actually see any of that. Never mind. And it's just like, oh, but could you explain then what I saw? No, fuck you.
It really is that ridiculous. So you agree with me with my assessment that they're moving away from COVID, they're letting it fade away now because it's no longer politically beneficial for them?
Yeah, COVID still being a problem right now is a problem for them.
Yeah.
Because they promised that they were going to shut it down. And schools are closing again. You have vaccine mandates that aren't working, and everything they're doing is failing. Everything they're doing is failing when it comes to COVID. So, but here's the funny part, though, right? Is they need mail-in voting in the drop boxes.
Yeah.
And they need COVID to justify those things. So they have to convince you. They have to convince you that COVID is terrifying, scary, and you should do everything you can to avoid it. You should take all of the big pharma poison. You should live in fear, but at the same time, you shouldn't be upset with the people in charge right now, because those deaths aren't really COVID deaths, and it's misleading. They're trying to go down both sides of the street at the same time with it.
They want to
really
have their cake and eat it too, and they can't. They just can't. It is too damn obviously false on its face. You cannot have this what is it called? I'm dying here. What is this freaking called? This false dialectic or whatever. You can't. You cannot have COVID is bad, but it's not that bad. It does not make any sense. It's not going to resonate with anybody. So I think that you're bringing up an amazing point there, Adel. They do need mail-in ballots. They do. And the only way to keep those mail-in ballots going is COVID keeping going. But COVID keeping going is killing them.
Or you federalize the elections.
Right?
And this is why I think that they're not promoting mail-in the way they were before, right? Like, that's not the push. Like, do you remember after COVID first started, like, they immediately like mail-in voting, and you don't see that anymore. Now it's, well, we need to take control, so there's no other choice but mail-in voting. We need to make sure mail-in voting is available for anybody who wants it, or anyone we feel like sending a ballot to, or 7 to your pets or whoever. Not only that, but now we also need we need to mandate it at this point. Like those states that want you to show photo ID, oh no, that want you to show up in person, no. Take it to a Zuckerbucks drop box. We'll take care of it from there.
Yeah. Nano says there must be a point when the absurd just can't be accepted for many who, so far, have tried to stay asleep, and that's the thing. The narrative is getting so ridiculous that people are even trying to stay asleep because they don't want to believe the truth. It's too scary, right? But it's becoming more and more difficult for them to remain asleep because what these people are trying to get them to believe just continues getting more and more and more absurd on its face. I'll go back to what you just said there. And as soon as I said that, it left my freaking mind. Adel, can you go back like 2 minutes and repeat what you said?
About them trying to go down both paths at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a simultaneous. It's not. It's the deaths are misleading. The cases are misleading. The tests don't really work. It's really the comorbidity. There's a difference between dying from COVID or with COVID. Mm-hmm. Also, this is the scariest thing in the fucking world, guys. It's going to spread through all of you. Every last one of you is going to get it. A lot of you are going to die. You're going to die. You're going to overwhelm the hospitals. And you're all going to die. Now, there's a difference between deaths with COVID and deaths from COVID, and those numbers are misleading. So don't blame us. Like, we're really doing a pretty good job. If you look at just the deaths from COVID, we're doing great, but don't you dare catch it or spread it because you're gonna fucking die. Like that's like it's just.
It's so stupid. Here's the other thing that they're doing, Adel. And for anybody out there who needs another boost of, man, the Democrats really are realizing that they're politically screwed. They are literally discussing using the 14th Amendment to disqualify the Republicans because, oh, wait for it, they committed insurrection by questioning the 2020 election results, so they're no longer qualified for office under the 14th Amendment. Guess what? Now we're the only candidates. How are we gonna lose now? That's literally where they're going, and it is so hilarious to watch. I'm sorry, Democrats, questioning the validity of an election result is not insurrection.
No. I mean, go back to 2017. You had House reps, I think, and senators on that side of the aisle doing the exact same thing. I think in Alabama was one of the states they challenged, a state that Donald Trump won by like 30 points or some crazy shit. And they challenged Alabama, like what's that all about? And now to do that is just like this unspeakable atrocity that you could commit. It's
yeah, well, I mean, those Alabamians really wanted their abortions and lack of gun rights,
it's so exhausting, like how over the top they are with it too. Like, oh, you should be disqualified for it. Really the same shit that you did 4 years ago, that was fine, but when a Republican does it, it's like clutching my pearls and get out of here with that.
It's exhausting.
Yeah,
really.
Thank you Tony and Flash Mach 5. Tony hooked us up with shades, Tony Dennison, and then Flash Mach 5 hooked us up with 500 gold pills. So much appreciated, guys. Thank you for that.
Yep. Much love to you guys. So, we have still a half hour left. We've only been doing this for 20 minutes now, which is weird to me. It feels like we've been doing it for longer for some reason.
Are you not having fun? Are you not having fun, Pixels?
Dude, I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my entire life.
What do you make of I mean, we talked about this on my show earlier, but we'll circle back again. Adam Kissinger's thread on the Ray Epps. Do you want to get into Ray Epps a little bit?
It's just as ridiculous as what the January 6th committee tweeted. Oh, yeah, Ray Epps? Pfft, we talked to Ray Epps like last month. He says that there's no validity to what they're saying. So, obviously, since he said it, it ain't true. What?
Do you think they actually ever made contact with Ray Epps? Or
fuck no, absolutely not, dude. No.
What about you guys in live chat? So the January 6th committee, all of a sudden after Ray Epps becomes the most popular man in America, they come out and say that they've already interviewed him, and he said that he's not a Fed. So clearly he's not a Fed. Now, do any of you out there, do you believe, one, that he actually they ever made contact with the January 6th committee? Two, if he did, do you think he was seriously asked, like, under oath? And well, obviously you don't believe him. I mean, clearly. It's just like, come on. It's so silly. And the best part is when Adam Kissinger thanks him. We spoke to Ray Epps and we thank him. We thank Ray Epps.
That's the best part for me, because he's like literally the ringleader of what they've been calling something. They've been comparing this to like 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, and here you have the ringleader of this thing that was telling people to do what happened, and we thank him. Like, what? Like, is what happened bad, or like are you reversing on that now too, or what? I mean, good lord, dude. That's like we talked to Osama bin Laden and he cleared something he cleared up something for us, so we thank him. I mean, good lord, man. They can't even keep their narrative straight.
Well, obviously you could trust his word as a Fed. The January 6th thing is absolutely falling on its face. And they're never going to slow down with it, though. That's a thing. Like, I wonder. I wonder how
Okay.
far like the two realities will diverge, right? Like we used to live in, like when I first started into all of this back in early 2018, like there was two separate realities for sure, but there was like it was like a Venn diagram, right? Like there was some overlap there. There's some level of shared ground, like solid ground that like I could stand on and a social justice warrior could stand on, and we could both agree that we were standing on something solid. And in that space, 2+2 = 4,
Water's
and
wet, the sky's
water's
blue.
wet, sky's blue, grass is green. All these wonderful truths of life like exist. And there was this Venn diagram. Like, there was at least that little sliver of shared reality, and it's gotten to the point now where those two circles are not even not that they're really touching anymore, but they're on separate pieces of paper.
If I
And
fed this to a liberal and they told me it tasted like menthol, I would not be surprised.
it's like you say that like joking, but it's true. Like we have, depending on where you get your news or information, or whether you get any at all. Those are probably the most based people, the people that just ignore all this shit. It's a great meme. Like, can you believe that somewhere there's just some idiot laying by a lake enjoying the outdoors and is completely unaware of all some freaking idiot. But no, like, in all seriousness, like there is no common ground to be had anymore. You can't even look at a leaked document that blatantly says something and agree that it blatantly says it, or a video of a guy behaving a certain way and agree that he's behaving a certain way. It doesn't matter what what you see with your eyes or ears. It matters what side you're on, and that's what your reality is. It's wild.
Look at Project Veritas. Raw videotapes of these crooked officials admitting through their teeth everything that they're freaking doing, and even admitting they know it's wrong. And then you've got fact checkers actually trying to convince people that that's not what was said, and that it was somehow out of context, and that it's somehow false. And you have people on this planet who buy that, who will disbelieve their own ears and eyes if Alex Kaplan orders them to. It appears we're at an impasse, sir.
We really are, man. We really are. I don't know what has to happen. Like, I feel like it's likely going to be the COVID thing that really breaks the wheel on this. Like, because that's affected everybody so much, and we really are just starting to scratch the tip of the icebergs of the lies and cover-ups and the real crimes against humanity involved here. But I think that's probably our best opportunity to reground everybody kind of back in the same spot, right? Is through the COVID lies, because it's so fresh, and the trauma is so fresh, and everything's so fresh, and the damage is still visible. If you could prove what happened there and make that the true narrative, or the official narrative, the accepted narrative of a bioweapon, increased numbers, the mass formation psychosis, all, like, if you can really get that across the finish line for people, I think that's when you'll see a unification, because it didn't matter if you were a true believer lefty or a Betsy Ross flag waving, righty. You come together at that moment and you're fucking pissed, because your livelihood, your social life, your society, everything had been just absolutely ravaged by lies and misconceptions and all that. I think that could breed some unification that would otherwise seems impossible right now. So I think I think you need a scandal of this level, to be exposed, to kind of jar people out of their echo chambers or away from their normal thought patterns and get them kind of thinking a little differently, a little bit of different mindset.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I hope that you're correct. I hope that you're correct that the revelations of the truth behind COVID really does unify people, because I think it's been one of the most divisive things that has ever happened. I mean, you thought the division was bad in 2016. Well, holy shit, look what COVID did, right? God, I remember moving to this area, Adel, and being at first so blown away by how nice everybody was around here. It almost reminded me of down south, where you've got this little, like, everybody knows everybody type of feeling, and it was just nice. But once COVID started, that all went away. Everyone became rude pricks, just like I was used to, further south in the state. And I started hating going into public, because every time I did, I had some freaking hag telling me to, put my mask all the way up over my nose, and I just wanted to freaking punch somebody in the face at that point. So I really hope that you're correct, that the bullshit is out there finally. People are starting to understand the truth behind COVID, and then it will be a gigantic moment of unification, and really unifying us by showing us who our true enemies are, who our mutual enemies are. Nothing unifies like a mutual enemy. Nothing.
Yep.
And so I hope that's the situation that we're about to find ourselves in. I think that there's already signs of that happening. Months ago, when there were BLM people, or some black supremacist group or whatever, I'm not quite sure, but literally protesting alongside Trump supporters against the vaccine mandates. That was a good sign for me. I don't know if you saw that story, but that was I was like, good, thank God. Thank God. And what a miracle that really was. People from such opposite political spectrums coming together on one issue. That's a good sign. So I hope we're heading into that more. I hope that we're going to have a big moment of, F Fauci. The scamdemic is exposed, and we're all pissed off. I really hope that all of this anger that they have convinced us to throw at each other over COVID finally gets aimed back at the people who deserve to be angry at, and that is the government officials who have kept this going for so long and really upended our lives for the past 2 years.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Punky Custer says, even before it can be proven the veil is thinning, now is a perfect opportunity to come back to the conversation table. Yeah, I mean, you pick your spots, find like the Project Veritas video. I wish there was a way to show it to certain people, with it out not being James O'Keefe. It could be like any other reporter, because a lot of people shut off just mentally when they see James O'Keefe, and because they've been just told so many false things about him, or he's been painted in such a negative light by the mainstream that a lot of people. But if you could just get the documents or go through those with people, which it's tough. Or I still think Ted Cruz gave us maybe our best weapon to kind of start breaking down the matrix a little bit with those questions that he asked that couldn't be answered by the deputy assistant to the deputy director of the FBI, whoever that lady was. I can't remember her title, but I agree. You got to pick your spots. I think that it's still tenuous with a lot of people, but if you get some good solid ammunition, some good solid content to share, and you feel like you can get someone to kind of approach it with an open mind, or you see a crack, absolutely, Punky Keister, I agree. You could definitely have some very productive conversations. And thank you, Tweety52, for the cookie. Much appreciated.
Yep, right on. So, okay, I think that we've beaten the COVID horse beyond recognition at this point. We got about 20 minutes left. What else would you want to discuss today? What else did you have?
Let me see. I had a few things I didn't get to. I think all mostly COVID related, but let me see if there's a few. I had a few other things I didn't get to on my show.
There was a lot of COVID stuff out there today, I noticed.
Yeah. So frightening. WHO joins the European Union and changes direction. Suddenly warns against continued COVID booster shots. So they're switching their tune here because they know these things are ineffective and dangerous, and they're not popular. People are fighting back against it. So now the World Health Organization has waved the white flag on COVID vaccine boosters too. WHO released a statement about COVID vaccines yesterday. It filled with the usual public health jargon and ass covering, but one line stands out. A vaccination strategy based on repeated boosters, doses of the original vaccine composition is unlikely to be appropriate or sustainable. It's over, people. So you held the line. And look, it always happens over there first, right? It feels like, and trust me, this will reach over here. The vaccine is gonna die an ugly death, and that's why I get so frustrated with other certain things involving that. In Chicago, this is DC. Mayor Bowser says, "Don't have your first shot yet. Get it today, and you'll be ready for the weekend. If you're heading out to a restaurant, bar, and nightclub starting Saturday, you'll need 1 proof of vaccine and photo ID, proof of vaccination for 12 years old plus, and a mask." So if
Hey, what the hell happened to we don't have to wear our masks if we get double vaccinated?
Well, I just want to know how all the black people in DC are supposed to get anywhere, because black people are completely incapable of getting a photo ID.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So, like, seriously, how is a black person or a minority, or I guess any Democrat, right? Because they seem to be the ones most convinced. I guess you might have to be pretty dumb to be a Democrat. I don't know. Maybe you're incapable of getting a photo ID if you're a Democrat, and that's what they're so worried about. But seriously, the voter ID is totally racist. Black people, minorities, they're not capable or smart enough or whatever, according to Democrats, to obtain an ID. So, Mayor Bowser, are you purposely discriminating and trying to keep minorities and people of color out of your restaurants, nightclubs, and bars starting this Saturday? Because that's what it sounds like to me. And well, I don't
remember though.
I wouldn't think that, because I personally think a black or minority or any person of color is perfectly capable of getting an ID. I think that they're just as smart as I am, and they can get an ID the same as I do. So I don't think this, but your politics and your party politics tell me that that's not true, and that they're not capable. So all I can assume from this is that you're trying to keep people of color and minorities out of the restaurants and clubs in DC. You racist woman.
Yep. I think you have a perfectly valid argument there, but you have to remember it does not apply to those black people who couldn't figure out whether or not they wanted to vote for Joe Biden because, of course, they ain't black.
Yes, well. Let's see, what else did I have here? Dr. Fauci saying just about everybody will get COVID-19. So went from we're going to stop the spread,
we're going to shut down the
virus, we're going to shut down the virus, to no, actually each and every one of you is going to get it. Do you want me to read this? I don't think I need to. I think it's the quote itself.
That's the main takeaway.
Yeah,
this is them literally. This is like surrender. This is surrendering to COVID right now. That's what this is, them declaring the war is lost. The third COVID Reich is over. Der Krieg ist verloren. It's done.
So funny.
Tun Sie was Sie wollen.
Here you go. This is beautiful. Canadian Ronald McDonald House threatens to evict unvaccinated child cancer patients and their parents. So Ronald McDonald Houses in British Columbia and Yukon, Canada, plan to evict child cancer patients and their parents if they don't get the COVID-19 shot by the end of January. Beginning January 17, 2022, everyone 5 years and older who are working, staying, or visiting our facilities, both the house at 4567 Heather Street, Vancouver, and the family room in Surrey Memorial Hospital, must show proof of full vaccination, 2 doses, doses in addition to completing our existing screening unless an accommodation has been sought and has been explicitly approved and granted. This is just
beyond the pale,
sad.
man.
Yeah, man.
It's
To kick
beyond
out
the pale.
child cancer patients, to make a political statement.
I hope these people enjoy burning in hell. It's because of people like this that I hope that there is a hell.
Yeah. Well, I believe in some system of karmic justice, and whether it's a fiery pit, another lifetime that they're gonna have to live after this one, or whatever it is, I don't know, but I do believe in some kind of karmic justice. You have to, otherwise you'll go crazy, because justice doesn't come in this realm. At least I have seen no proof of it to this point. New Rubio bill provides sanctions on China for barring independent COVID-19 probe. So, yeah, I mean, look, if we win the House and Senate, and we do get Donald Trump or any patriot back in the office, hopefully Donald Trump, but any patriot back in the office, the first thing they need to do is not sanctions. They need to charge reparations to China for $10 trillion. I would actually make China pay off our entire debt as a nation, or at least every penny we've printed since late 2019. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. The sanctions are great, and everything. And Marco Rubio, I'm not a Marco Rubio fan, but one thing I will say Marco Rubio is really, really strong on is he's very, very anti-China, which I think is good. That's probably why President Trump gave him his endorsement, although I think he could do better in the state of Florida. I like where his head's at, but it's got to go further. China needs, in my opinion, to pay tens of trillions of dollars across the world for what they did. They should.
I will say, in all fairness, I think that if we're going to sanction China for this shit, then we should also be sanctioning the NIH, NIAID, and EcoHealth Alliance, because they were just as culpable in the creation of this thing as the CCP. It was a joint operation.
I agree, and that's likely why we probably won't see anything like that, is for the United States to point fingers. They're also going to point some thumbs right back at themselves.
Don't throw stones if you're in a glass house.
Yeah, and we are in the glassiest of houses right now. And then this is completely unrelated to COVID, and this has been around for a couple of days. I don't know if you covered this, Pixels, but the USA Today put out an article about pedophilia, trying to normalize it. They deleted the tweet shortly after, but the article stays up. But I'll just read you the tweet. It says, when most of the public thinks of pedophilia, they assume it's synonymous with child sexual abuse. A pedophile is an adult who is sexually attracted to children, but not all pedophiles abuse kids. And some people who sexually abuse kids are not pedophiles. No.
I don't know how the last part of that, how they could ever possibly think that that's valid. I think if somebody sexually abuses a child, they're most definitely a pedophile, no doubt about it. Maybe they don't want to admit it to themselves, but that doesn't make it not so. Look, this is disgusting, and the fact that this is on something as prestigious as USA Today is incredibly upsetting to me, at least.
You see one of these articles pop up in different mainstream outlets from time to time, Pixels. They pop up, they get the back flack, they take them down, but they never stop trying, do they? They're always trying to normalize this sick bullshit, and it's like they're constantly testing the water, right? Like the NAMBLA crew constantly testing the water to see whether they can stop hiding in the closets and come out and be celebrated like the rest of the LGBTQ community. They want their spot on the alphabet train, the pedophiles do, and they keep dipping a toe in to see if the country's ready to accept them as like a sexual orientation rather than sick criminals. And the answer, they better remain hidden. This is not the it's just so gross. It's so gross.
I wonder if this is just another vote buying scheme, just like the Democrats' so-called criminal justice reform is. Think about it, right?
What, they're going for that pedophile vote?
Arsonists, freaking murderers, rapists, you freaking name it. No bond, no bail, just let you go. It's all good. You didn't commit a serious crime, not in our eyes.
That makes sense, man. They were really, really quick to give Joseph Rosenbaum his little nickname and celebrate him as an innocent protester, right? The little JoJo, poor little JoJo Rosenbaum, the guy that got found guilty of raping 5 different children. Yeah, innocent little JoJo, the victim JoJo. I mean,
I'm convinced. Why else, other than to cover up for people like Jeffrey, or make things easier for people like Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and now Prince Andrew, right? I'm sure. And there's plenty of that stuff going on in Hollywood too. So of course they'd want to protect all those people because they're political shills. But also, I really do think it comes down to they're trying to do everything they can to vote by. And if they say to all the pedos out there, we're cool with you, it's okay, we actually feel bad, you have an affliction, who the hell do you think the pedos are going to freaking vote for?
If the Democrats are reduced to federalizing elections as their main platform, and then like their runner-up is, hey, look, we've lost the black vote, we've lost the Hispanic vote, we've lost most of the white suburban vote. Well, we still got arsonists, we still got vandalists, we still have murderers. You know what though? We've really got to lock down that pedophile block, that pedophile demographic. You know,
it's fucked up, but I swear it's got to be true. I mean, God, man. If that is the truth, though, I mean,
it's not. They're trying to normalize. They want to normalize it because there's a lot of people on that side of the aisle, or just a lot of I think people at the top of the chain that have these proclivities, these really sick, twisted, whatever, and
they cannot afford to be opposed any more by the public than they already are.
Yeah, and it's their money really can't buy the acceptance. And this is their only attempt at it is to reach out to the publications and influencers that they control, and be like, hey, I need you to soften the country's stance a little on child touching. I don't like doing it behind closed doors. I'd like to be able to take my child victims in the public, every once in a while. It's basically what they're saying. Like, can you please soften that stance? People seem to be really anti-kid touching, and I don't like that. So how do we normalize a little bit of kid touching? It's so fucked up.
It is majorly fucked up. You know what else is majorly fucked up? I've been refreshing my news aggregator now for a good half hour, 40 minutes, and nothing is coming out. Kind of a slower day today, Adel.
Hey, if you want to end 5 minutes early, I don't have a problem with that, buddy. I don't see a point in just talking just for the point of talking. I don't have much else to really go over with you guys. If you want to hear me bitch about Donald Trump's vaccine comments for 5 minutes, I can do that. But I feel like people get really sick of that and just get turned off.
Well, I do have one more. I do have one more comment for that because you pulled up that article about the EU starting to talk a different tune, right? Or sing a different tune with the virus. I hope Trump's paying attention to that because, they could be trying to make a major role reversal here, right? Or they're gonna come out and say like, "Oh my God, we just realized how horrible these things are," and then they're gonna start pointing the finger at Trump. Because he's the one that did this whole Operation Warp Speed. He's been taking credit for it ever freaking since. And I'm just saying, it's starting to look weird to where they might try to turn this around on him, and it's not gonna be pretty.
I hope they do. Honestly, he would deserve it. Like I hope they do turn it around on him. I hope, not that I want to see people get hurt by these vaccines, but I hope the truth about them comes out, and then. I hope that he does get held to that, to that questioning of, hey, you were telling people this was safe. There was evidence for a while. People were trying to show you. I hope he does have to answer those very tough questions sometime.
Yeah. I just don't know how likely that is, though, because the Democrats have been worse than Trump with the vaccines. They've been pushing it harder than anybody else has.
No, I just I want someone to really lay out, you know, the VAERS database information, lay out some of these people collapsing at you know, soccer, basketball, football, whatever games. I mean, you're seeing people, you know, the many reports. I want someone that interviews Donald Trump to have the balls to put that data in front of him, all of the data in front of him, and have him face it and then comment on it, you know. And short of that, anyone that interviews him without doing it and just allows him to just kind of skip over it or just kind of talk it up and then move on, I feel like you're doing the journalistic profession a serious disservice. So I'm not going to do it. If people are going to rant, I'm not. I said what I had to say about it. I think, you know, and if you want to hear my thoughts, I would like to see, go watch the last half hour of our broadcast on my channel today. If you want my thoughts on this, I laid it out calmly. I didn't get angry. I didn't yell. I didn't rant. I didn't get all huffy puffy. I just said what I thought, and I let everyone else try to talk as much as they wanted about it. But never mind.
You know what I would like to see? I'd like to see somebody like Steve Bannon sit down with President Trump and try and change Trump's mind on this thing.
You notice that in what, 2.5 years, 3 years of Bannon doing his show, I don't think I've ever seen Donald Trump on there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it?
I think Bannon would probably ask some pretty tough questions. You know what I mean? I don't think Bannon's intimidated by Donald at all, and I don't think Bannon would pull the punches the way every other interviewer does with him. So
that's why I'd like to see it.
Yep.
All right. Well.
I think Trump is getting foot and mouth disease, says old Russ Bucket. It's so hard, man, because this is so much easier to do these shows. Pixels, wouldn't you agree? It's so easy. Like when Q was posting and everything Trump was saying was right in line with what we believed, and it's so easy to come up here and be a cheerleader. It's so easy to come up here and tell you guys what you want to hear. I could probably have 30% more viewers than I have right now if I would just keep my mouth shut. If I would pretend that everything that he does and says is 4D chess and is all coming around to some great reveal at some point coming soon, you know, to a theater near you. If I just ignored every instinct, every gut feeling that I have, all of it, and just did that the whole time, I bet you my broadcast would be twice as big. It's so easy to do that. Everybody wants hope. Everybody wants to be told everything's okay. Everybody wants the head patting and the coddling and just to be told that, no, you know, there's no way that we've been deceived about anything. Everyone's exactly who I thought they were, because it's a nice little comfy bubble. And I just can't do it. I can't in good conscience do it. And I know it hurts my numbers. It hurts my channel. It hurts my broadcast. But you know what? I go to sleep and I sleep.
So be it. Yeah.
And I sleep and I sleep and I don't have any anxiety about the way I handle my business on here, because it comes from the heart and it comes from a place of honest expression. And I know that the people that are still with me are with me because they enjoy how I honestly feel about things. And they're not just looking for someone to tell you that it's just everything's okay and everything's going to be fine all the time, because some things do suck. Sometimes good people disappoint you. Sometimes it just doesn't work out the way that you thought it would. And you might get it wrong. You might guess wrong. You might feel deceived, stupid, betrayed, backstabbed, whatever. But the important thing is that you remain honest with yourself. And that's my commitment to you guys, is that I will always remain honest with myself, and therefore through that remain honest with you about how I'm feeling. I'm never going to tell you that I think something is 4D chess or just for optics or some kind. If I don't truly believe that myself, I'm just not going to do it, you know. And I'm not saying that people that do, like, there are great programs out there that do that, and they might truly believe that. And I have no reason to think that they don't truly believe what they're telling you. But what you're getting from me is just an honest analysis of what I see and nothing more. And those of you that have stuck with me, I really appreciate it. Those of you that have jumped off, I hope you guys find what you're looking for elsewhere. No hard feelings. That's all I'll say about it.
Exactly. We're not here to be perpetual shills for Trump. If we were, then we wouldn't be any better than the people on MSNBC. Simple as that.
Right. It's exactly right.
We're here to provide the most accurate picture that we possibly can as to what is happening right now, and a little bit of what we believe it means. We're not going to blow smoke up your ass to make you feel better, and we're certainly not going to avoid avoid criticizing somebody because they're popular. That would make us no better than Rachel Maddow.
Absolutely. I'll leave it there. Like I said, especially the people that follow me over here to 5x5 after the show. I know you guys understand why I do and how I do what I do, so it really doesn't need to be said. But every time I have a show like I had today, and I didn't even go off really all that much today, but I check my Twitter. There's people bitching at me. The numbers go down. I see the things in the live chat. Oh, you always rant against Trump. This and that's like, well, that's not always. I cheer for Trump more than I rant against him. But you only hear the bad because you're so used to, like, when someone praises him, it's just what you expect. You don't even appreciate it. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, it's 7:00. Let's sign out of here, buddy.
Alrighty. All right, whoever's got the controls, you can go ahead and shut it down. I'll be back tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the breakdown. We'll be going through all the relevant news of the day. And Adel, of course, I'm sure you've got something going on tomorrow, right?
Oh, maybe. Is Thursday a big day on WTPI? Yeah. I don't even know.
I think that's the day when the big dudes come on.
Yeah. So there's these two guys that come on. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them. One has a show called The Dilly Show. His name is Brendan Dilly. And the other one has a show called Quite Frankly. He goes by Frankie Val. They're two pretty good buddies of mine. And if you want to hear an awesome conversation, stop by WTPI at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Taking It Back. Otherwise, I'll be around Friday, same time for Deplorable Discussions, and maybe Saturday morning for a Saturday morning chat. We haven't done one of those in a while, so chomping at the bit to take some of your calls.
Right on. All right. Well, that's been the New Guard, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Whoever's got the controls, go ahead and clamp her down. Peace out, everyone.
Later.